Hi, I'm Nat.
And I'm Guy. And today we're talking the Iran conflict. We may have a little bit of difference of opinion, me and Nat here, so you'll get maybe two sides of the coin. Let's kind of get right into it there, Nat.
I don't think we have differences of opinion as much as you think. But first of all, thank you for being here. And please don't forget to subscribe and also leave a comment. It might be easier because sometimes we get a lot of comments if you put a capital C in front of it, if you really want it read out loud. Otherwise, I'll just read all of them.
Well, I don't think it's Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. That's usually when we do the Alberta independence coverage. We get a lot more viewers then. We'll see how many we get today.
But I will say hello to Nan, who says, hey, Nat and Guy.
Fantastic.
Nan, thank you for being here and let us know what you're cooking today.
Yeah, there's a lot less people in the chat today, Nan, so feel free to leave comments. We'll read them all.
Yes.
Okay, why don't we kind of give our opinions on what's going on over there before we get into the most breaking news in Iran. Now, all of our geopolitical sections today, like the US, Canada, are mostly related to Iran and how that country is reacting, or what are they doing to support or not support the war.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Okay, I think this is I don't think this is a good war whatsoever. Number one, I don't like far off wars, especially in the Middle East, number one. But number two, Iran is not the kind of country you want to go to war with. It's filled with underground missile manufacturing facilities, drone manufacturing facilities. It probably has the most rugged terrain almost in the world, but definitely in the Middle East. You can easily get air superiority over the country, but as soon as you try to put boots on the ground, it's going to turn into absolute devastation. It's going to be really hard to do absolutely anything inside of that country. The U.S. looks like they're dominating right now. They only have a few weeks of ammunition because everything's either deployed in China and the islands around China or Russia. So, I mean, they're spread extremely thin right now. Their manufacturing capacity is the U.S. The U.S. is limiting capacity right now. And this is really going to hurt them on their other fronts. I think Iran, Russia, and China are kind of fighting this out together, and they realize it. On the surface, they want to make it look like these are all separate conflicts. But I definitely think there's strategic play behind the scenes.
And I will say, I think trying to compare it to past wars, because I wouldn't even call this a war outright yet, is a mistake and is a logical fallacy to try to say we're just going to war again or the US is just going to war again. The strategy has been already outlined in the national security document that came out on November, and to be able to focus on the Western Hemisphere, of course, you have to go against those that are trying to go after the Western Hemisphere. I'm not saying that once it gets into boots on the ground in an actual all-out war, I would say the same thing. But right now we have some proof of concept from what Trump has tried to do, both in Venezuela and Iran before, that lasted only 12 days. Yes, this is different, and it has escalated to a point where now they're saying, earlier today, they said they might have to put boots on the ground. But I, again, would caution everybody to just go all out and say it's going to be exactly the same as it's always been.
They're going to need to pull the ripcord on this one. This is already starting to go bad. They're already starting to pull military equipment out of South Korea and out of the Asian region, which they were using to kind of keep China in check because they're running out of ammunition. They have plenty of aircraft carriers and plenty of planes. They just don't have enough bombs. And they want to keep air superiority so they don't have to put boots on the ground. They can only probably last 4 or 5 weeks. Iran, Russia, and China have one asset that the United States doesn't, and that's time. They can just literally wait them out. The U.S. and the way they manufacture their weapons, these are multi-million-dollar weapons. Every single bomb costs millions of dollars. Russia, China, and Iran, their manufacturing is far different. They can ramp it up. They have much better manufacturing when it comes to war. The U.S. is currently in a transition, trying to transition their military-industrial complex right now. We've kind of profiled Lucky Palmer on the show before, and he's kind of the new age of the military-industrial complex, trying to make cheap military manufacturing so they can compete with these other countries, but they haven't been able to transition. So the longer this thing goes on, the worse it's going to get for the U.S. I do think Trump's going to be smart enough to pull out within the next 4 weeks. But even if he pulls out in the next 4 weeks, this extremely weakens them within Russia. The big assault for 2026 is going to be coming up in March in Russia, because that's when the ground is completely unfrozen. So you're going to see a full-on assault from Russia, and I just don't know if they're going to have the military capacity to kind of fight back like they did last year. I know Europe is taking most of the cost on their shoulders now, but that cost is really just going to U.S. manufacturing, and they can't keep up right now.
But I will say there is, in a way, logic to all of this. And I think it does translate into the U.S. trying to regain its place as a power, but also with the shipping lanes and with everything that has to do with going after Greenland, going after Panama and Central and South America, going now after the Middle Eastern section. All of those are very important for shipping lanes and trading routes, and being able to at least manage China within those, including also the issues with the oil and the petrodollar. I think there is a lot more reasoning other than just we don't like Iran, or we're trying to get justice for the people of Iran.
Populism came up through Donald Trump. That's why I like Donald Trump a lot. That's why I'm pretty much a populist. I really despise the neocons, and I think they constantly get us into forever wars. I think their new strategy was they realized they don't have any public support. I mean, that wing was completely dying, but they're reemerging with this new strategy that, like what happened in Venezuela, let's go in and now have a regime change and have massive benefit for the United States. If that works, you actually can get public support. I mean, I was actually behind that operation. The problem is when you keep doing that around the world, eventually somebody's going to hit back, whether it's Iran sinking an aircraft carrier or having a cell within the United States. They're going to attack the United States, possibly on their own soil. And then you have mass public support for a forever war. And I think that's what the neocons are looking for. They're looking for these strategic strikes so they get hit back on their own soil, possibly to get public support for a forever war. And that's the one thing I'm definitely against. I'm even against what's going on in Iran now. I think it's in a far off place. It was much more easy to justify something that happened in Venezuela, and there were immediate add-on effects that the U.S. got from the regime change in Venezuela. That was a stellar operation. I think this Iran situation can only go sideways. At best, Trump pulls the cord within the next 4 weeks and tries to hand it off to Israel and to the Middle Eastern countries that are in the region. This should have been a regional war to begin with, and we're going to kind of get into that. Marco Rubio let it slip that Israel was going to strike and that the U.S. felt like their hand was forced to support them. I think they had another option, was to let Israel and the regional powers kind of handle Iran on their own.
But for me, what you mentioned, they might sink an aircraft carrier. They might do something with a cell within the United States or another allied power, unpowered now, like Canada or Europe. And I would say those are all still just, they might do this, they might do that. It hasn't happened yet. And through the Abraham Accords, as you mentioned, they also have the regional support that they didn't have and haven't had in different wars yet. So that changes the scenario a little bit for anybody speculating about what might happen. It hasn't happened yet. And everybody that starts trying to say, oh, but they might put boots on the ground. Again, it hasn't happened yet. So wait until it happens and then panic. But I think a lot of people are panicking a little bit too preemptively about this just because they have flashbacks of what has happened and the things that the U.S. has done.
That's not the case at all.
But they've changed their strategy now.
The case is the U.S. is already low on weapons. They don't have the weaponry to actually fight this war.
But that's why I think they won't.
Yeah, and that's why they're not. That's why he is going to pull the ripcord early on. But I'm saying...
But that's why I'm saying I think people are panicking too much about it too fast.
But what I'm saying the new neocon strategy is, because they had success in Venezuela and they had a lot of support from U.S. citizens with that operation, they think they can go all around the world and do operations like this over and over and over again. Eventually, somebody is going to hit back. And when they do hit back, we already know the U.S.'s reaction is going to be forever war. And I think the neocons not only have this kind of planned out, but they're really burrowing themselves into the administration right now. You're seeing the neocons really rise in the Trump administration. When it used to be J.D. Vance and Tulsi Gabbard, even J.D. Vance is having a lot of pressure put on him where he's coming around and supporting this war when he was fervently anti-war for the longest time.
But again, it's only been a few days and people are already talking about an all-out war, boots on the ground. It's going to happen. It has to happen.
Well, it's because...
And I think based on just recent examples of how this administration has managed things as opposed to other ones, I would just say don't panic yet.
No.
And don't go to the worst case scenario yet.
Well,
if it's a month from now and they're still going at it and they're running even lower on weapons, then I would say, yes, it's a terrible idea to continue it. But at this moment, I think there's just too much panicking and too much commentary around things that haven't happened yet.
I'm not panicking. I'm just going off of what the administration is saying. And the administration is trying to say they have enough ammunition for a forever war. But when you look into it, they don't. Trump is saying they can go on indefinitely. He's the one talking about boots on the ground. I'm not the one.
Well, they have to put up a strong front.
I'm not the one bringing up the conversation. I'm the one reacting to what Trump is kind of saying here. Now, I honestly, because I am looking at the numbers and their ammunition and how thinly they're spread between China, between Russia, and honestly between Mexico and cartel organizations in Mexico City, which China is definitely, or within Mexico, which China is definitely going to be utilizing if these wars amp up. They just don't have enough ammunitions, and the way their manufacturing is set up, it's a for-profit manufacturing military-industrial complex where that's not what Russia has, that's not what China has, and that's not what Iran has. They just can't compete if these three countries stay firmly together. And also, these wars are being fought halfway across the world.
My question is, what if we change a little bit the paradigm and the reasoning behind it? So, and see how, like, the timeline of events all the way from last year during the 12 Days War when they took out, allegedly, all of Iran's nuclear powers, and then look at everything else that has happened, the going after Greenland, the Panama stuff, then the Venezuela thing, then the alleged Mexico hits. We do know that Iran and the BRICS countries are all connected within each other. And we do know that one of the main targets eventually is China, and to hinder it possibly and more easily for the US economically. However, you have to take out the allies first. You have to take out China's allies and Russia's allies first. They did that with Venezuela by cutting off oil. They did that by taking control again of the Panama Canal. They're trying to do it by taking control of Greenland and having military bases there. Also, in Mexico and within what's happening in Mexico, since 2018, Iran has been financing, and this information is coming out recently, Iran has been financing the current Morena regime and a lot of the cartels that have, and Mexico has opened up the doors for Iran to be able to pass through to the United States. And there have been accords that were discovered a few days ago, or at least came out a few days ago within Mexico. So all of these allegedly or apparently random things that the US is doing are connected in a way, and in a way where if you cut off certain things here, certain things there, oil over here, power over there, then you do start gaining more and more power as... But again, I don't agree with the forever wars. However, I don't know, and I don't think as of yet that that's where it's heading.
Well, the United
That's
States,
why I'm saying don't panic
The
yet.
United States doesn't have firm allies like Russia, China, and Iran. And you have to realize, a lot of people might not know the geography here. Russia, China, and Iran are literally connected by land. Russia and China are not connected by land, but by the Caspian Sea. So it's going to be very easy to transport any kind of manufactured military weapons, troops, anything else they need in the dead of night without anybody knowing, and to claim deniability here. Now, when we talk about Greenland, Panama, things that are happening in the Western Hemisphere, like Venezuela, I actually agree with a lot of that. And I think a lot of the countries within the Western Hemisphere have an added benefit to that. Fighting a war halfway across the world, I don't think has any added benefit except to Israel. Israel is the big beneficiary here.
But I'll continue to say, what do the things that have happened within the Western Hemisphere have in common or have connections to in the fight, in the wars over there? Is that they're receiving either financing or support or even military support from places like Iran, China, Russia as well.
You can always make that excuse for a forever war, but
it's not a forever war. What I'm saying is you can't, and I said this when the Venezuela thing happened, and you also disagreed with me then. You can't just pretend like you can solidify the Western Hemisphere and go through with the national security strategy.
Yes, you can.
If all the countries that you're trying to go after within the Western Hemisphere and to gain power within the Western Hemisphere have the support of the regimes that are trying to go against the U.S.
I completely disagree. That's why you have allies like Israel.
You're trying to say, oh, I'm blocking off my little house, but I'm leaving the back door open for anything to happen.
That's not what I'm saying. And that's not what Russia, China, and Iran are saying. What they're saying is they're going to stand firmly together. Mm-hmm. That's why they're so hard to break apart. What you need here is if Israel wants to fight the war with the other Middle Eastern allies, and surprise surprisingly, there's quite a few of them standing with Israel. This should be their
Because of the
war.
Abraham Accord.
This should be their war, and it has a completely different complexion from that. And if the U.S. wants to supply weaponry and sell weaponry to Israel for this war, I'm completely fine with that. That's a regional war, and that's on them. And if they're allies, then they can handle that.
But what
front.
I'm saying is there's still, those allies still have a lot to do with the Western Hemisphere. I mean, look at what's going on in the UK and Australia. All over Latin America, they were able to get rid of China, but Iran has also infiltrated over here. So again, you can't say we're going to strengthen ourselves and become a big, mighty power again.
You can.
Just through trade and tariffs and etc. if you still have the threat of those that want to continue to attack.
War breaks out. I don't see.
I'm not saying
I don't
war.
see Iranian troop. I don't see Iranian troops on the ground in Russia. Russia's handling it on their own, getting some manufacturing and weapons from Iran and from China, and that's what Israel should be doing if they want to fight this war. This is their war. This should not be America's war.
Yeah.
And also, I don't see Iran asking for a bunch of help from Russia when it comes to troops on the ground or anything else like that. It's the same dynamic that Russia, China, and Iran have is the same dynamic the U.S. should have with their allies. The U.S. shouldn't be forced to go all around the world fighting these wars and doing all these bombings. If regional players and allies want to support that war or want that war, that's their war to have, not the United States.
But what I'm saying is I don't think it's just the United States going over and supporting. It's also beneficial for the U.S. to become once again and show that might makes. Everybody's talking about international law. Keir Starmer fills his mouth with international law. However, they have no might and they have not proven any might. If the U.S. is able to prove might within the Western Hemisphere, then it gets to be that power within the Western Hemisphere, which was outlined in the national security document of November.
We'll see how much might they have when they're literally trying to fight Russia,
But
China.
that's why I think they might exit faster than a lot of people think. I don't think it's going to be a forever war like many are trying to speculate.
What do you think happens when they exit?
What do you mean?
When they exit, the same thing that happened in Russia is now going to happen in Iran. Their manufacturing and is going to go absolutely through the roof. So if there is no war, that manufacturing is going to be going 24 hours a day.
But my question is, if you're able to cut off the supplies for that manufacturing by things that you've already done,
it's all internal.
How do they get the oil? Enough oil.
It's all internal. Iran has a ton of oil. Iran has a ton of minerals.
China is dependent and Iran is dependent on China's money. So by going also, again, that's why I'm saying Venezuela
and I'm going to explain something
and Cuba
to you.
are essential for this as well.
Russia, China, and Iran's manufacturing is far different than the U.S. It doesn't require a bunch of money because they own a lot of the industrial manufacturing, the mining companies, straight to the source. They, from beginning to end, they own every part of the manufacturing, and a lot of their country is actually based around their military manufacturing. It's completely opposite than the West. But let's get
except the U.S.
We do obviously have a difference of opinions. If we have any comments, let's go with those, and then we'll get into the actual stories of the day.
We do have quite a few comments, so thank you. I'll read them out. I asked Non what he was cooking today, and he said, not cooking today. My lovely wife is bringing home some Thai food from the city, pad Thai and pineapple fried rice. I used to order every Friday, almost. We had a Thai restaurant that was right across from our house, and Salad Thai in Vancouver. That's no longer there, unfortunately. And I used to almost go every Friday.
And you ordered the same thing most of the time. The pineapple rice and the pad Thai. So if you've never had Thai food and you're thinking about trying it, those are two very good items.
Yes. And Harmony, hello Harmony, says, good evening, Nat and the guy. Hello. And also says, I agree with you, Guy, in regard to Venezuela as opposed to Iran. And with Iran, I will continue to say, don't start speculating or figuring that this or this might happen if it hasn't happened yet.
It has happened. They're literally bombing the shit out of the country.
Yes.
Halfway across the world like they did before. And I don't think it's going to
be... last year, we already saw it happen last year.
They put a solid strategy out for the Western Hemisphere, which a lot of people actually agree with. Mm-hmm. But when you start doing stuff like...
But what I'm saying is you can't enact that strategy within the Western Hemisphere if you still have all the other powers trying to vie for power within your hemisphere. You have to also take care of that.
First of all,
you can't build a fort and leave a little gap open for any other enemy to come in. That's what I'm saying.
They're letting a country like Israel dictate. We're going to see Marco Rubio talk about this. Israel was going to strike, so we felt like we had to stand with them. This is absolutely crazy. They have enough on their plate right now.
And I do agree with that. But again, I think they've put that much on their plate to be able to manage everything else they're trying to manage as well.
They're also trying to manage.
I don't know how long they'll stay there. That's what I'm saying.
They're also trying to manage Cuba. And I think operations like what happened in Venezuela, possibly what might happen in Cuba, is actually getting a lot of support. This is going to turn a lot of that goodwill, especially before the midterms, against Trump. You're seeing stock markets crash.
And I'm saying, what I'm saying is don't panic yet. And all of that lack of support might be because of the panicking and because of the rhetoric that is coming from a lot of people that are deciding that this is exactly the same as what we've seen before without any verifiable proof that that's where it's going to head.
Well, no,
that's what I'm saying.
Even if it doesn't head there, he's already gone too far with this. That's what I'm trying to say.
Again, but if you think
he's weakened the military apparatus to such a point, and he showed his cards now to Russia and China. China is just salivating at the mouth. They're like, wow, we didn't realize they were so short on munitions that they're having to pull munitions out of South Korea, out of Japan, and out of the Philippines in order to just fight Iran at this point.
Well, they could be doing that strategically.
Huh?
They could be doing that strategically.
They're not doing it strategically, I guarantee you. And the fact that...
Because if you get another power to think you're weaker than you are, then you actually have the upper hand.
But
again, this is all speculation.
But they are this weekend, and that's going to come to fruition in March.
But also, how weak is China?
That's going to come to fruition.
For example.
China's not weak because they have Iran and Russia fighting two wars. And this Russian war is exactly...
Yeah, they're distracted.
I think this is what China kind of planned behind the scenes with Russia. Russia actually has more than enough troops and military armaments to take Ukraine within a month. They've classified this as a special military operation and not a war. So they're only able to access 10% of the military because they want this to go on for years and years and years while they bleed Western manufacturing. It's not about bleeding the U.S. necessarily. It's about bleeding U.S. manufacturing. And now they have Iran also bleeding U.S. manufacturing, bringing them to
but bleeding themselves too. That's what I'm saying.
They're not because China's just sitting there not doing anything.
And a lot of their supplies and a lot of the ways they used to be able to get things are no longer as available as it was before.
Available.
That's what I'm saying.
It's completely available to Iran, Russia, and China. Actually, it's ramped up immensely in Russia, and Iran is so mountainous. It's almost impossible to get to a lot of these underground missile cities that they have. A lot of people don't know about these underground missile cities. Okay, let's
Harmony says, well, we have a lot more comments.
Sorry,
you just went into it.
I kind of wanted to get it out of the way because I knew we had me and Neocon Nat over here.
How is this Neocon? I'm literally just saying, everybody chill. And stop speculating before things happen.
Okay.
Voice of reason.
Oh, Neocon Nat is what I call it.
How is that? I just said I don't want it to be a forever war, but I understand if it's a strategy that has a lot more to do with things that have already happened and will continue to happen than a lot of people are saying and just focusing on this one issue.
If Israel's going
That's what I'm saying.
If Israel's going to go bomb them and Israel wants to do something, the United States says, we'll sell you the weapons, but we're not getting involved. That should be the answer. And I think that would have got a lot of support from Trump's base. And he's going to see...
I don't disagree with that.
It's not going to look good in the midterms, the way this thing is, not only the way it's going, but the way he handled it and allowed Israel to pressure him into this thing.
Allegedly. I will continue to say.
Well, a lot of people came out from the administration stating outright it was Israel.
And then they backtracked.
Okay, let's continue.
Harmony says, I believe that Israel should do things on their own or with allies over in the East. And the U.S. actually was able to build that structure and help for Israel through the Abraham Accords and through all of the allies. I mean, why was Trump going to the Middle East so much last year?
Well, I completely agree with that comment. And I was actually surprised when this entire thing happened that so many Middle Eastern countries actually stepped up and want to be involved in this thing. But it would have been absolutely fantastic if this was an operation of these Middle Eastern alliances and Israel, because that would have really sent a statement to the rest of the world. The fact that the U.S. got involved, I don't like the optics of it on top of a lot of other things.
My 2 cents says, hello, everyone. Hello. Sorry, we're yelling. This is usually when we debate how it goes. We try not to do it on camera because people say it's off-putting, but this is usually how we debate subjects.
And rarely do we disagree on subjects. So I say 90% of things we agree on. This happens to be one thing we disagree on.
Kind of, though not really.
Somewhat. Yeah.
Republic says or asks, do you not know who opened the gates of Toledo in 711 AD and caused the Crusades? No, my religious historical knowledge doesn't go that far back.
I don't either, but I'm going to guess he's going to either say Israel or Iran.
I think Persia would be at that time.
But if he's still in there, let us know.
And then Harmony's asking who Republic is asking and says, I'm asking anyone. So if anybody knows, I'll continue reading comments to see
Groff
if
probably
somebody,
knows.
yeah. Harmony says, no, I do not know the history. I know a little history of Israel. I don't know that much history of the Middle East.
Yeah.
I'll be honest.
But I also do like the Western Hemisphere strategy, and it actually is a large portion or a large landmass to kind of protect and patrol. And I think the U.S. has the capability to do that. I think it has an added on benefit for Central and South America countries as well as Canada. I think it was a solid strategy.
But can they do?
What they need is Europe, Israel, and these other people to fight their own wars in their own regions.
And I agree. But again, can you fully manage your side if your side is also infiltrated and is also helping in certain ways the other regimes you're trying to leave behind?
Let's
No. Or the, not regimes, but the threats that you're trying to leave behind. Harmony says, in my spare time, I've written down 711 AD, Toledo, and the Crusades. Republic asks, why do people think they've been kicked out of Christian countries with more than 1,000 times?
Yeah, and surprisingly, when I was going through the articles, and we actually have a ton of articles today, so we do need to get to them, but there was a lot of talk of like a holy war, this being a religious war, that coming out from the U.S. side, as well as the Israeli and Iranian side. It was surprising how many captains and generals were having briefings with their platoons or their, what would you call it?
Troops?
Yeah, with their troops that were quoting biblical quotes, talking about Christianity, a lot of things like that.
And Harmony says, I just learned about the phrase red-green alliances, which includes Marxism, communism, and Islamists, and certain aspects of Islam do look at the world through an oppressor-oppressed dichotomy, very similar to the Marxism and the communism that we see over here as well.
Well, yeah, and there's no way...
And that's where the logic comes for a lot of the support that you see from the insane people, the communists and the Marxists, for Iran, for example, for the regime of Iran.
And because this war isn't primarily started by the U.S., it was started by between Israel and Iran. It has a lot of theocracy in it, a lot of religion in this. So the fact that the United States is stepping in there and as well, and it adds another religion into that. So now you have Islam, Christianity, and Judaism. So it's like, got a lot of different wrinkles.
It sounds very historical.
And then you have the dynamic of what's happening in Europe right now with kind of the
conquest of Europe, I will say.
Yeah, the conquest of Europe is probably a good way to put it.
So again, if your allies are being conquered, either softly or hardly, I still don't know. Then what do you do?
I'm not going to agree with you on this thing.
I'm not saying go to war, but I'm saying you have to manage the situation in some way. You can't just close your eyes and say, "Oh, we're America first. We're America first."
You're the one,
and then bad things happen.
You're the one selling all the weapons to Europe. Europe should be able to defend itself with trillions of dollars worth of weapons, and so should Israel, and so should a lot of these other Middle Eastern countries.
Yes, because they stayed within the paradigm that was done when the allies. When the powers ally, hold on, what am I saying? After the wars, when the new scheme of the world came up, that was the agreement, but Europe was a lot stronger and was able to also take part in this alliance. However, they have let themselves...
They're literally spending hundreds of billions of dollars on this war.
That's literally what I'm saying. I'm saying, I agree, the U.S. was still within this environment where they had agreed to all be allies and help each other. However, the U.S. was the only one holding the bag.
No,
everybody else left all their weapons and all their...
Europe right now is spending the majority of the money. They've now stepped
because
up.
Trump told them to.
Yeah, but what's happening? A lot of that, they're saying they're spending the money and it's all going...
It's going elsewhere. That's literally what I'm saying.
So let them fall on their own then. If they want to be corrupt...
And that's what I'm saying, the U.S., and that's why Trump wants to get out of NATO, because NATO and all of these other organizations that were formed after the wars, because it's no longer beneficial to the U.S., because all the other powers are no longer powerful.
It's not the U.S.'s job to patrol the world. You can try to justify it.
That's what I'm saying. That's literally what I'm saying. You're just not listening.
You're trying to justify it by saying Iran's a threat. Iran's halfway across the world, and I don't care if they're a threat. Focus on their own backyard.
They are in your own backyard. That's the problem.
They're not.
Mexico let them in. Yes.
They're not.
Mexico, they're also infiltrated within cartels and Mexico. Who do you think provides a lot of the weapons to Mexico?
I'm already saying the Western Hemisphere is extending...
The Western Hemisphere allowed all that threat to get in. and even supported it with Obama sending who
I
knows how
understand
much
you're an
money to
international
Iran.
Trump supporter. The majority of Trump supporters want America first. They don't even want this Western Hemisphere strategy.
What I'm saying is you can't say America first, cover your eyes and ears, and hope for the best. You do have to manage.
This is how you're going to get into a forever war in the Middle East.
I'm not saying go to a forever war. That's the thing.
Okay,
I'm saying understand the threats and where they're coming
We
from.
do need to get into the articles today at some point. So read 2 more comments and then we'll go into the articles.
Thank you so much to Steve Sufaro.
Steve Safaro's a regular viewer.
Yes.
He must enjoy watching us fight today.
Yeah. Thank you so much for the 499 super chat, and says, if you think this is a divided war with separate responsibilities, you have no clue how important global economics is. Nat is a voice of reason. Thank you.
I wouldn't
And
say
that's
voice
what
of
I'm
reason,
saying.
but I would say he's exactly.
I'm not saying go to war. I'm saying look at the whole global context of it.
I would say Steve's exactly right that this is a connected war. And it obviously, even though they're trying to make the illusion that Iran, Russia, and China are fighting these wars separately, and these are separate things, and you can kind of separate them behind the scenes, they're completely connected. And there's a lot of black organizations, cartel organizations in Central and South America that they're going to use to open up a fourth front against the United States.
That's what I'm saying.
The United States needs its allies to step up. They can sell them weapons. The United States is going to have to increase and rethink its manufacturing because it just can't provide enough weapons at this point. But they can't fight these wars halfway across the world. They need their regional allies to fight the wars if they want to fight them.
But I'm not saying go fight the wars just the U.S. by itself. I'm saying there's reasoning behind this. And it was outlined in the damn document that nobody read, apparently.
I'm fine with Israel and the other allies in that region fighting that war, just like I'm fine with if Europe wants to fight the war within Russia. But you can't, and I'm even fine with the U.S. selling the weapons, but you can't have the U.S.
Continuing
all
to be
these
there.
fronts.
I agree, but they need an
why?
exit strategy. They just can't say, okay, you deal with it.
And why? Because they will lose if they do that. They have a losing strategy right now.
Yes, because they're too spread out. And I agree with that. That's what I was saying.
One more comment, then we go
Wait,
to...
we have 2 more, so I'll just read
more.
the other 2. Trembrig says, Dubai's safety reputation is destroyed forever now. I never really liked the idea of Dubai because of the shady things going on there. I never really understood the appeal, other than if
taxes.
you have... Yes, taxes, if you have a lot of money, and if you want to show off X, Y, and Z things you have and your wealth. But the seedy things going on there, the quasi-slave labor to build it, I was never really okay with that.
I
never really wanted to go see it.
I was more than okay with it. I didn't want to go see it, but why was I okay with it? Because I'm comparing it to the other countries within that region.
Well, yes.
And it's head and toes above the other countries. Now, there may be some shady things that are going on, but if I compare it to other countries in that region, it's amazing what they were able to do. But you're right. They're not going to have that idea of security. And that's why Andrew Tate's constantly online making videos like, yeah, there's nothing going on here. Like they say that they're bombing, but I don't see anything. And they're having influencers put out that message because they don't want to ruin their reputation, or they're trying to save their reputation. And I don't think it's going to be able to be saved.
But I think very similar to China, if you look into how and what they were able and not able to build, for example, with the, what was it called? The island, that thing that they built and then they never finished, and then the world that they also didn't finish. A lot of it is very mirage-y, similar to China. They build these huge buildings, they spend who knows how much oil money they spent and who knows how much deals they made. But in the end, it's all just on the surface. It's not actually functional or actually useful. Very similar to a lot of the buildings that big giant skyscrapers in China that are empty and then they have to demolish because they're so badly constructed. I think they're doing it to put out this version to the world that, oh yes, we're very wealthy and we're great, but they've never done as good as they say they have.
Yeah, some of it's illusion, but some of it actually does work, and it is very nice overall. That being said, I did watch a documentary on The Line, and that's the big line Saudi Arabia was making. It's now been canceled at this point.
Everything is canceled.
And it was amazing that they built so much infrastructure, concrete factories, water purification, that was only for The Line. They finished those, and now all those billions of dollars are just going to be completely wasted.
I mean, they could use it to manufacture other things, but I don't know if they have the capacity.
No, because it's so isolated.
The capacity.
So they're talking about possibly building a stadium with these facilities they already have built, but who's going to want to go to a stadium in the middle of nowhere?
In the heat as well.
Well, I just don't understand why they didn't decide to build one little piece of the line at a time, sell it as they built it, rather than this mega project.
Because they tried to do that with the island or the palm or whatever it was called in the world, and that didn't work.
Yeah.
because nobody bought it.
But I will say they have had mega projects like the Palms and that have worked in the past. But that being said, their rate of failure is very high, and it's a lot of investor money that they're selling big dreams to that never comes to fruition.
It gives me a very, and even location-wise, a very Vegas vibe. Like it's all pretty fake, and it's all money that comes and goes, who knows where.
Yeah, it definitely is.
And it's seedy.
But it also provides...
I've never been to Vegas. I went recently, and I don't like it.
It also provides kind of a safe location for Westerners and people from the Middle East to meet for business dealings and stuff like that. So I think it is a good location for the Middle East to have, especially because they don't want every country to be Afghanistan.
Yeah. Tal says, howdy again, you twos. Hello, thank you for being here. And I'm glad you found a way around the emoji ban. That's good for you. Hold on. Harmony says, 3 rings of ping pong in regard to religion. I am for spirituality and not organized corporate religions. I always say I'm not religious myself, but I do continue to talk about and try to explain the importance of religion, especially in the West, that's being lost, and the solid foundations and fundamental foundations it has brought to societies in the past, and we are seeing the effects of losing that.
Yeah, and I'm not Christian, but I don't hold my tongue. I'm highly sympathetic to Christian nationalism because it gives a non-moving moral foundation that kind of puts guardrails on the government, especially
on the people.
Especially what we've seen over the last 10 or 15 years in Canada and a lot of other countries. If the government doesn't have a non-moving moral foundation, it thinks it rules from higher down, and it tells the people what are the morals, and those can change day to day. Yep. So I think especially Western society was built on Christianity. And although I might not be Christian because I don't read the Bible every day and go to church, I think Western society was kind of based upon that. And I would like to see a resurgence of that. And I think there are a lot of other non-Christians that are highly sympathetic to Christianity and Christian nationalism.
Quickly, Tal says, I was telling someone the other day that as soon as the ruling gang in Iran got together to pick a new leader, they're just going to have to do it again right afterwards. We're going to talk about that too. And Harmony says, and in Canada. Canada has burned a lot of its churches, and I mean, I don't see a way forward for Canada for a long time now.
Well, yeah, and we will go into Iran. I do have a lot of friends that were from Iran, and I do know a bit about the country. And the thing is, a lot of, I would say, liberal Iranians are the ones that have left the country and live abroad. A lot of the people within Iran, yeah, you'll have groups of maybe 10,000 people that will protest. This is a country of 90 million people. A lot of people actually do support the regime, which is you're not going to have this uprising, which Donald Trump and a lot of the administration was saying, we'll do the bombing, but you're going to have to do the uprising, basically telling the people they're going to have to make the revolution. I just don't think it's going to happen. I think the image Iranians give off that live outside the country are far different than the Iranians that live inside the country have different ideologies.
Mm-hmm. And I will say in Vancouver, there is a pretty, not huge, but a big Iranian population, or the Iranians that escaped or that didn't want to be in Iran anymore. And I got to work at 2 different schools that had big international student populations, and a lot of them were Iranian. I can never say it properly. But a lot of them were against, and their parents were against the current regime, and that's why they had left.
And that's what you get. But you also get a lot of Iranians, and this is why I knew so many Iranians, especially from Vancouver, that would live half and half within Canada, half within Iran. They would keep all their money in Iran because the bank would actually pay you to keep your money there. So not everybody that has fled Iran is necessarily against the regime, but a large portion are. And that's why you get so many viral videos coming out of Iranians around the world saying there's going to be a revolution. I just don't think it's going to happen. I don't think that's the sentiment of the majority of the country.
Should we go to breaking news?
Yeah, let's start.
40 minutes in, we're going to breaking news.
We had an argument. That's fine. Let's go to breaking news.
A debate, not an argument. A debate.
Okay.
Extra, extra, read all about it. Extra, extra, read all about it.
And yes, of course, again, the show today will be mostly focusing on Iran. Hold on, where is it? There we go. And from Nick Sortor, and this is just a few hours ago.
Why don't you did you press the breaking?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
From Nick Sortor, quote, an Iranian ballistic missile has just struck the largest U.S. military base in the Middle East, Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar, unknown if there are any casualties at this time. So this is pretty recent, at least. So
Yeah.
the escalation does continue.
And I will kind of say this, like, I think Donald Trump wants this to be a 4-week operation, kind of in and out, even if he doesn't succeed at his mission. And I think ultimately he does want to leave. The problem is if they sink an aircraft carrier, if they have lots of casualties on this base, I don't know. It's going to be very easy for Donald Trump to get sucked into something bigger. And I really hope that doesn't happen at this point. If he doesn't accomplish what he needs in 4 weeks, he just needs to pull the pin and leave.
I mean, maybe leave with a message, I would say. I think that's what they might do. Just leaving a pretty big message before they go.
Well, and I hope that message isn't a nuke. And even if it is a nuke, I will say this: Iran is one of the best fortified countries to actually take a nuke because it is so mountainous. The only place you're really going to hit is a city, and that is going to be very bad optics for the U.S. if they were ever to do that. Now, I don't think they would, but
In Tel Aviv with this breaking news, an Iranian missile we have just learned has hit the largest U.S. military base in the Middle East. Now, this news is just coming into CNN. Here's what we know this very moment. Qatar says an Iranian ballistic missile has struck Al Udeid Air Base, as I said, the biggest American base in the region. We don't know much more. No casualties reported as of yet. Again, we don't know what we don't know, but we do know they are saying it was a ballistic missile. It's obviously a significant development. And as that is coming in, we are learning that the CIA is also working in Tel Aviv with this.
Okay, and Qatar is really just a sitting duck there, and that is one of the largest U.S. military bases. I'll also say there is another wrinkle to this that a lot of people aren't talking about, and that is 20% of the world's oil actually comes out of that region. It has to go through that strait.
Strait of Hormuz. Shipping lanes.
The majority of China's oil is right there, and right now the only oil freighters being allowed in are China, but the only ones getting out are the ones that are being escorted by American vessels. So it's very interesting, the oil, what's going on with oil, and the fact that they got Venezuela when they did before they went after Iran, I think was very strategic.
There's a strategy.
I think Alberta benefits from this immensely. We've seen oil prices already go up. I think they're going to shoot through the roof the longer this goes on.
Mm-hmm. And again, shipping lanes. And looking at the whole world, I think is important.
Well, I still don't agree with it.
And all the strategy.
But I will say Alberta might not. We just did a video about Daniel Smith and the $10 billion deficit. There might not be any deficit with these kind of oil prices.
Continuing on, and this is from few hours ago, Marinafol says Israel just invaded Lebanon. Ground troops are crossing into southern Lebanon after Hezbollah's elite Radwan force moved toward the border. Israel is fighting Iran, Hezbollah, and dismantling Lebanon's weapons infrastructure simultaneously.
Yeah, and it's extremely important the U.S. does not get drawn into this as well. Israel has already drawn them into this Iranian conflict. They should have never gotten involved in that in the first place. It should have been the regional powers that were fighting that war. Definitely don't keep going, and definitely don't go into Lebanon. There are a lot of Christians in Lebanon as well. One person we used to work with actually used to be Lebanese. Yeah, Chris.
Oh, yes.
Not Billboard Chris, but
yes,
the original
I know
Chris.
which one.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned, it does look like the U.S. is moving troops around at least. Closer towards the region right now, which again, speculation. I say don't panic yet, but it could mean.
Yeah, I just don't see. It's going to be really hard for the U.S. to justify any kind of helping the Israeli military go into Lebanon. They don't have a lot of military capacity. I could see how they can try to justify Iran. I don't necessarily agree with it. Some people do. That being said, Lebanon doesn't have the same military capacity that Iran does.
Yeah. But Marinafol said the U.S. is now pulling Patriot systems from South Korea. Former Commanding General U.S. Army Europe Ben Hodges says that single headline tells you everything. That tells you this is not going to last a couple of weeks. Again, I think that's a lot of just panic. Patriot production is being ramped from 600 to 2,000 per year. Nobody knows how many interceptors have already been fired in the last 72 hours.
Yeah, it's very interesting the way, and I'll bring this up, how Russia manufactures a lot of their weapons, and China manufactures in a split process. A lot of their stuff is done more high-end and technical like the U.S. does, but a lot of it is done like Russia, so they can get massive amounts of bombs and equipment out. One good example of this is the AK-47. It's easy to manufacture. It never breaks down, and they just keep using the same design over and over. I mean, U.S. manufacturing is extremely, extremely costly. It's not very cost effective, especially in the new kind of war where we're having drone warfare.
One last quick question, General, is the replenishment of the stockpiles. I think from a long-term strategic perspective, that's probably the biggest risk that the U.S. is undertaking with this war. How long would it take? I think you mentioned it very briefly early on, but how long would it take to replenish those stockpiles? You're talking about years here, and especially the complex ones like HIMARS, for example.
Yeah, well, I think I saw something yesterday that indicated that the production of Patriot interceptors was going to increase from 600 to 2,000 by increasing per year. So that's in a year, 2,000 Patriot interceptors. And I can only imagine how many interceptors have been launched here over the last few days. I don't know those numbers, but you can see it will take time, depending on how much the vendor is able to produce or increase their production capacity and all the relevant things.
Just got a report. The team just sent me a report. U.S. considers relocating THAAD Patriot to Middle East from South Korea. So South Korean-based systems may be moved amid prolonged U.S. military operation against Iran.
Well, that tells you this is not going to last just a couple of weeks. It'll take that long to move the THAAD battery and get it set up and integrated into what's going on.
Yeah, and this is just
and you can leave it there. And I will say this: a lot of people don't understand. The U.S. has the most technological weapons, but they don't have the most technological missiles in the world. That goes to Russia. I think Russia is the 3 or 4 most technical missiles, meaning there's no missile defense for the new kind of missiles Russia is kind of putting out, and they've demonstrated this within Ukraine. So if they shared those missiles with Iran, a lot of these aircraft carriers, airplanes are kind of going to be sitting ducks in the Middle East. The question is, would Russia actually share that technology with Iran? I don't even know if they want Iran to have that technology. Even if they are allies, there's certain things they want to kind of keep to themselves. But the U.S. has made it priority number 1, and they have come out and said, we do want to catch up to Russia when it comes to this military technology.
And something else that slipped from Marco Rubio's mouth that is making everybody lose their heads is this from not Baron Trump. I will say, quote, Marco Rubio just confirmed Iran was preparing to target Americans, and if we had waited to get hit, Democrats would have dragged him into hearings asking why he didn't act sooner. He said the threat was imminent. Intelligence showed that if Iran got hit, they were coming after the U.S. Waiting would have meant more casualties, so the U.S. didn't wait. They acted. They were not going to sit there and absorb the blow.
Well, and I don't think it was a binary situation, kind of how Marco Rubio's putting it. I think that's how he wanted to sell it to the U.S. public. But there was the third option of just supply weapons to Israel and the allies in the Middle East and let them fight the war.
No. Did you tell lawmakers that there was an imminent? There absolutely was an imminent threat, and the imminent threat was that we knew that if Iran was attacked, and we believed they would be attacked, that they would immediately come after us, and we were not going to sit.
When he says we believed Iran was going to be attacked, they knew Iran was going to be attacked. Israel said they were going to strike Iran, so that's the context. He wants to. He can't say. He doesn't want to outrightly say Israel. But that's what came out afterwards.
And absorb a blow before we responded, because the Department of War assessed that if we did that, if we waited for them to hit us first after they were attacked, and by someone else, Israel attacked them, they hit us first, and we waited for them to hit us, we would suffer more casualties and more deaths. We went proactively in a defensive way to prevent them from inflicting higher damage. Had we not done so, there would have been hearings on Capitol Hill about how we knew that this was going to happen, and we didn't act preemptively to prevent more casualties and more loss of life. Is the president?
Okay, yeah, and I think he's trying to sell a binary. It's either we attacked or we were attacked, and I don't think that was the binary that was necessarily going to happen.
And recently, I think not right after that, but soon, a few hours after that, Trump did come out and say, well, no, Israel didn't tell us to go do it with them.
Yeah, there was multiple.
So there's been a lot of the administration trying to backtrack.
There were multiple officials coming out leaking the same thing Rubio leaked, but the administration kind of kiboshed that and really came out and say, no, that's not what happened, because there was so much blowback from the general public.
Yeah. But also from Batya Ungar Sargon says, quote, Iran is not just about Iran for President Trump, it's about China. China was getting 20 to 30% of its oil from Venezuela and Iran at a bargain basement rates. How can China afford to take Taiwan now? Notice how it's not lifted a finger to help Iran access of paper. And that's kind of what I was trying to say, that it is all, at least in my opinion, the strategy is more connected than a lot of people are trying to connect. And if you look at Venezuela, what they're doing in Cuba, what they're doing in Mexico even, what they're doing with Greenland, what they're trying to do with Panama and have been able to, all of that does have to do with shipping lanes, with China, with trying to get the bigger powers on the other side to not be as powerful.
The BRIC strategy, they're obviously completely aligned and completely together. When you hurt one, you can hurt the others, but you can't be trying to implement this Western Hemisphere strategy and then go halfway across the world to Iran. You're going to need your regional allies to do that lifting if they want to do that lifting. And obviously, this is something that Israel wanted to do, not that the United States wanted to do.
But what I'm saying is that you can't implement the Western Hemisphere strategy while there's active threats.
You're not going to be able to.
I'm just going to
tell
have
you.
to weaken those that could come
I'm
after
going to
you
tell you right now.
and destroy that strategy.
Iran, Russia, and China, you're not going to separate them, and you're not going to severely weaken them. And I know right now you're going to say, well, they're bombing the shit out of them. They look like they're weakened. I'm going to tell you what, the United States is weakening themselves just as much right now.
I'm not talking about the war aspect. I'm talking about the tariffs, the shipping lanes, the oil, the et cetera. Everything else that these other powers need to function has been at least managed a little bit more by the U.S. now before they went into this.
No, I disagree, and this is why I disagree. You can bring the map back up there. The reason I disagree with this, when you went against a country like Venezuela, you were able to get a major impact there. You were able to get a change in leadership. Even though you left in the old regime, you were able to get the oil. You had so many added on benefits from that. But when you attack one of the three major players, whether that's Russia, Iran, or China, you're going to hurt yourself just as much as you're going to hurt them. They need to hit the smaller regional players, and they need to start cutting off shipping lanes. They've war gamed this for the last 10 years, and they lost a war against China every single time. I'm talking about the U.S., except when they went after shipping lanes. As soon as they cut off
shipping lane is right there, the Strait of Hormuz.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is you go after the easy shipping lanes, not after something like this.
But this is one of the most important ones that connects to China. That's what I'm saying.
The president, Iran is not just Iran. We have this sort of new axis of evil of Iran, China, Russia, Venezuela. And what the president seems to be doing, to me anyway, is isolating them from each other and then sort of picking them off one by one, forcing them into a more conciliatory posture vis-a-vis the United States. And honestly, what could be more America first than that? China was getting 10% of its oil from Venezuela at sort of bargain basement rates, and the other 10% from Iran. So it's lost 20% of its oil supply. So for China now, every barrel it has to consider, okay, are we going to use that for our expansionist foreign policy goals, or do we have to really focus on protecting our domestic aims, especially at a time when it is heading into an economic crisis? Now that choice is being forced on China. It's in a much weaker position than it was 3 months ago. And I think when you think about Taiwan, one of the most important and most difficult and treacherous foreign policy questions for the United States, to me, it seems like China is much less likely now to do something there just because it's much less likely to be able to easily afford it. I mean, that would take unbelievable amounts of energy to pull off. So the president is really playing 4D chess here, and I think it's really starting to pay off. I think in Iran...
Okay, yeah, and I don't think it's...
I think it's starve them. As part of the Western power strategy.
But what you have to understand is you can't starve them because they have Russia to their north. This is going to push Russia and China even closer together. They already have deals for oil. They're going to expedite those pipelines.
But they're not being able to get that oil.
Yeah, they are.
How?
Through oil pipelines, and right now it's coming by train into China and trucks into China, and they're currently building pipelines from Russia. Russia is the biggest oil supplier in the world, and because they're so sanctioned, they have no buyers except for China. So they're going to build those oil pipelines at a quicker rate now. Yet. Yeah, but they do have other means of getting oil from Russia into China.
Because again, China was relying on others that have been mostly mitigated now, like Venezuela and Cuba.
Because of how cheap the oil was, not because oil wasn't available.
Yes, but if you're able to starve them, either...
They're not going to starve them. They're not starving. Oil. They're not starving for oil.
Not just oil, but everything else.
Tariffs,
shipping lanes.
To be honest with you, I just don't see China attacking all of these countries. I don't see. You can say Russia, is attacking Ukraine, but that's up for debate, especially with the way NATO kept moving east. And I didn't see Iran attacking their neighbors either. So it's very hard to kind of frame it as this is an expansionist axis of evil. I do understand they have a different ideological view on the world,
but I don't think I don't think the way they were being expansionist is not through war. It's been through economic power, economic might, being able to take charge of manufacturing.
I agree with you, and I think you should fight them on an economic level. The problem is the United States can't fight them on an economic level because they were losing that fight against China. Now, for the first time, the United States is expanding at a quicker rate than China. So they were starting to turn the corner, but it's been too many years of China succeeding. They're realizing if they want to catch up, they're going to have to use military means, I think.
I think they're just trying to starve them and take away a lot of the things that they were able to use before, like Venezuela.
Yes, but they're doing that through a means of war, not a means of economic war.
But again, it's only been a few days. That's what I'm saying.
But what I'm saying is,
people are already saying this is boots on the ground. It's going to be a forever war. We don't know that.
I'm not saying it's for forever war, but even if it stops, what I'm saying is the United States has definitely decided to slow down the Chinese economy through means of war, not through means of economics anymore.
Well, through means of cutting off their suppliers.
Through war. Through military might.
Attacks, yes.
Through military might. Yeah.
So by becoming, once again, a power, the U.S.
Yeah, and I don't agree with that.
Because might makes.
I don't agree with that.
Makes right, but might makes.
Yeah, I don't agree with that.
Then how do you? What do you do? You're sitting duck otherwise.
You can cut off shipping lanes by not. You can cut off shipping lanes with the military without having to actually engage with the military, without having to bomb an entire country. And I think that's been a successful strategy when they did war game this in the Pentagon.
But again, if you cut off those shipping lanes and anger them, you have to be able to.
Yeah. If they strike first, then you have the right to strike back.
But then you get blamed for it as well.
What?
I mean, I don't agree with Rubio, but
okay. Well, we disagree on this.
It's a rock and a hard place.
Yeah,
in both senses.
There's definitely going to be an expansion of military might now globally, not just from the U.S. doing these strategic strikes. So, and I'm expecting a lot of this to not go through conventional means, and eventually you're going to have different organizations, whether it's cartels or funded foreign operatives, stuff like that happening, whether it's in the United States, Europe's wide open for an attack now. So, okay.
Yeah, because they allowed it to, because they've been mostly conquered. From Wall Street Apes, quote, a man from the Middle East confronted protesters who were supporting the Islamic regime of Iran at City Hall in Philadelphia. He called the protesters fake activists. Yeah,
and I just wanted to kind of show that there are protests happening in the United States, but these are mainly ideological leftists, and the elite of the Democratic Party actually agree with a lot of what's going on in Iran. They've been wanting to go into Iran for a long time, so they're not willing to fund these protests the way they were willing to fund BLM and a lot of other protests. That's why these protests aren't very big.
Right now, at least.
Well, I don't think they're going to get very, very big. I think this is a uniparty. The uniparty likes the fact that Trump's going into Iran.
You're all preventing me from moving where I want to go, and I'm going to go. Why don't you leave America? Why don't you leave? You hate this imperialist country. Why don't you leave? When Iranian women were raped and murdered by their government, none of you said shit. You're fake activists. Why don't you speak about the 50,000 Iranians who were killed? And I want to call out the fact that you pretend, oh, don't touch me. Meanwhile, you're all preventing me from moving where I want to go, and I'm going to go. That's okay. You can't imprison me.
Okay, and you can leave it there. And I kind of just wanted to show the left is really in an ideological conundrum here.
But they're not.
Number one, but number two, they don't have support from the money wing of the party, which usually funds a lot of these protests. Yeah. And yeah, there's some protests in New York because there's enough of an ideological center. Even without the money, the protests can get somewhat big, but it's nothing compared to what Palestine was, what BLM was, what a lot of these protests are.
But a lot of the ideological component, a lot of people may not see it this way, but could be connected to, again, the whole Marxist, quasi-Marxist, oppressor-oppressed dichotomy, where the IRGC does and has seen itself for a pretty long time as the oppressed. So they do continue with a very similar narrative. And I think that is where they get this inflection point of the insane Marxist communists supporting the Iranian regime, for example. So I do think it's a little bit more connected than a lot of people see. And it will always go back to that revolutionary spirit, but also the oppressor-oppressed dichotomy.
Well, and I kind of will say one more thing. I think Trump was sold on this. Number one, Venezuela did go so well for him, but he was sold on, we'll get a quick regime change. There'll be a revolution in the streets. The people will kind of take over. The first part actually worked. They didn't get a regime change, but they got a leadership change. The problem is that second part of the equation never came into effect. And now I think you're going to have the neocons working behind the scenes with a lot of the U.S. intelligence agencies, trying to get some kind of major military asset sunk or some kind of attack to happen to lure Trump into a longer term war. He needs to pull the string on this and get out with as soon as possible before something like that does happen.
And I will read Steve Surfaro's super chat. Thank you so much for the $4.99 super chat saying, incorrect, China 2049 initiative is delayed. See my comment. So I'm going to see your comment. Hold on, where is it? Here it is. Steve Surfaro says, per China 2049 initiative revision, border Iran war risks obstructing crucial shipping lanes, potentially forcing Beijing to recalibrate its long-term military-civil fusion strategy. That's kind of what I was saying, but you said no.
Yeah, and well, I think shipping lanes
that's why it's so important.
Shipping lanes are extremely important, and that's how ultimately that's the strategy the U.S. is starting to implement at this point. I think they should have just done all the easy shipping lanes first. This is going to be the hardest shipping lane to kind of
But I think
neutralize.
it's also about the starvation of what makes these powers powers.
But there's other shipping lanes and other ways to do that before you go into something like this.
Around.
And I don't even agree with going into something like this. So,
but I'm saying that, I mean,
I do understand there's a strategy behind it, and I do understand.
I agree with the starve. I mean, I agree with the national security strategy that they put out of starving other powers and becoming once again a power themselves, the U.S.
Okay, but they can't expect these powers to hit them back. You do agree with that?
They can't or they can.
You do agree?
Yeah, they're going to try. I mean, they're going to try to do something.
You're going to expect somebody to hit back at some time, and if they hit back on U.S. soil,
but maybe
that's going to be a forever war. Do you agree with that?
Yes, but again, I think that it's still a lot of speculation and a lot of, this might happen, that might happen, so let's panic right now and say everything's wrong and not go vote in the midterms.
I'm not panicking, but what I'm saying, they're going to have to do so many operations globally, it's almost guaranteed it's going to happen back. It's not like I'm theorizing because he did it once or twice or even 3 times. They're planning to do this a lot in a lot of different operations in a lot of different shipping lanes. Somebody's guaranteed to hit back at some point, and when they do, that's the neocons' kind of war cry, or what they've been waiting for to galvanize the American public into a larger war.
But does that mean that they would actually go and do that? They would listen to the neocons, or is there a new strategy that they might employ?
Well, it's the neocons that
as retaliation. That's not the same as we've seen time and time again.
The American people would demand it at that point. I remember what happened. I remember what happened after 9/11. So
yes, but people also learned from 9/11 and learned about the motivations and the lies that were behind it too.
I think the neocons
and how it actually strengthened them instead of doing what they said it was going to do.
I think the neocon strategy is they realized they lost all support from the American people. So they made this new strategy of, we'll do strategic strikes where the U.S. has massive benefits, and they got the general public on board. The next part of that strategy is to get a strike on U.S. soil or something to happen to major U.S. assets so they can galvanize the American public into a larger war. They need that. It's all about money and power.
But what I'm asking is, will the neocons win that internal war within the U.S. to actually be able to do that? Or, as outlined in the national security, people go read the document, as outlined in their national security strategy document coming out in November that explains a lot of what's happening right now, is there a different strategy as retaliation if there is something like that happen on U.S. soil or on a U.S. airbase or base or whatever?
The problem is, at the beginning of the Trump administration, the answer would have been no. The way the neocons have risen within the Trump administration.
But have they, or are they just using them? Or are they just using them? That's my question.
Absolutely. They're the shot callers within the administration now, and I've seen that transition. That's why J.D. Vance is now looking like, we're not the only one talking about JD Vance being leapfrogged by Marco Rubio. I'm seeing mass videos of this.
I
Everybody's
think they're
recognizing
using
this.
right now. I think Trump is using Marco Rubio right now because he's the most useful and kind of saving JD Vance for later. That's how I see it. That's how I see what's happening.
I'm seeing the
because
emergence of the neocons within the Trump administration.
who else aside from Rubio?
Everybody behind the scenes,
who?
all the
Give me names.
all the major shot callers behind the scenes.
Like who?
Well, I'll get you a list for the next episode, but I tell you who's definitely not there anymore, and they've been put to the absolute fringes. This is going to be JD Vance. So much so he's been forced to change his stance on Iran and what's going on. And then Tulsi Gabbard was the other big player that was anti-war, that was trying to keep Trump in check.
Yes, but those two have been redirected towards internal stuff within the U.S.
Also, we can
which
talk about.
I think might actually signal that they want them more as candidates than Rubio. Or they want to use Rubio for right now.
I can keep going on.
be their
Marjorie Taylor
barking
Greene
dog.
as well. Huge anti-war.
MTG is insane. No, now I just see her as an insane feminist. And we've talked about that
Every single
before.
person that was anti-war in the administration is now pushed to the absolute fringes and has no voice.
Because they've started to conflict with their own strategy that they had agreed with beforehand.
No, that's not the
thing.
case.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
But now let's see from Jason Cohen, quote, Victor Davis Hanson saying almost everything that Trump is doing seems herky-jerky. That seems herky-jerky has an ultimate strategic purpose to diminish the power of the Chinese and to turn Russia and China against each other. There is a plan and it's working. Why did you choose all the stuff that I'm kind of agreeing with? I think the plan is starvation and is to be able to reinforce yourself within the Western Hemisphere as the U.S., but you can't just close your eyes and hope everything turns out.
It definitely is. But again, focus on the Western Hemisphere. Other countries are going to have to worry about the rest of the world. And I know you disagree with that. And that's why I call you neocon Nat.
The thing is, those countries had strategies and have had strategies for a long time now to come to the West and to use the West while the U.S. was trying to close its eyes and open its borders and say, come in.
You also have the option on immigration to just not let these people in.
Exactly, but they're already in. They're already there. Iran has already made a bunch of deals with Mexico, for example.
You also have the ability to kick people out of the country as well, rather than go around the world bombing entire countries is going to have blowback.
He's not bombing entire.
He literally did. Iran is an entire country. It's one of the largest countries in the world as well.
Yes, it's bombed it twice. What other country has it bombed recently? The U.S.
Russia? It's using all military arms to bomb Russia inside of Russia
through the European Union.
Through the European Union.
We already tried to tell, but that came from Biden. That didn't come from Trump.
Yeah,
and
Trump then we can go to Venezuela as well.
That was 2 days, one day.
I'm just saying.
Again, it's a very different strategy from the one that people that cry, oh, neocons, oh, it's a forever war, are used to. And they're not used to this. And that's why they're going straight back to the trauma of all of the other actual wars that were started by Democrats.
What's going on in Iran is distinctively different than what happened in Venezuela. So that's my take on it.
It's a bigger...
No, it's not a bigger thing. It's a bigger target. It's halfway across the world in a war the U.S. should not be involved in.
How infiltrated is Iran into the Western Hemisphere right now, and the ideology as well?
I can literally
the strategy and how much help does it get and give to China?
No, I can literally say what you just said about every single other country in the world.
Probably.
Yeah. I can say that about China. I can say about that Russia. I can say that about Japan. I can say that about every single EU country.
Do they have that power?
I can say that about the UK and the UK intelligence agencies.
No, Europe is incredibly weakened right now.
No, but they're still infiltrating the Trump administration, and they don't like them. And they've been undermining his administration from the beginning.
I'm not talking about the U.S. I'm talking about the rest of the Western Hemisphere. How infiltrated is Europe, for example, with
you justified the war in your head, and I'm saying I'm not.
I'm not saying it's a war, and I'm not justifying it.
You're saying this isn't a war?
No, not yet.
So this
it's
isn't
been
a war.
few days.
They bombed the entire country. It's not a war.
Again, I don't until it turns into...
It's the largest military deployment in modern history, and this is not a war.
Again, it depends on how you define war.
I'm saying they've probably bombed over 500 billion to 1 trillion bombs have been launched against Iran at this point.
Just the U.S. or in Israel?
It's all U.S. It's all U.S. arms. So they're the ones responsible for manufacturing, and they're the ones. It's been a 50-50 split.
Okay.
So it's not a war, you're saying?
Again, they called the 12 Days War the 12 Days War from last year, but I don't know if I agree in the past context of wars. And I think that is what's getting a lot of people. I think that's what's getting a lot of people tripped up. They remember the actual Afghanistan war. They remember the actual Iraq war that lasted forever and did result in a lot of casualties and not much use as of now, as we've seen now.
You're doing mental gymnastics
How
to
is that
not
a
call
gymnastic?
to not call this thing a war.
Again,
It might be a short war. He might pull it within 4 weeks.
That's what I'm saying.
But it's
might,
still a war.
But I think that by calling it a war outright right now, you're just getting people to go back to, oh, it's going to be Afghanistan, it's going to be Iraq right away. When we have seen that the strategy that this administration has been employing, at least this since it got elected last, is not that. It is to go in quickly and leave quickly.
If somebody punches me in the head, I don't say, oh, he slapped me. I say, he punched me. I don't try to jump through mental hoops not
I'm
to call
not
this
trying
thing
to
a
make
war.
mental hoops.
You
I'm
are.
saying, yes, you can call it a war after it finishes, but we don't know how long it's going to take.
Well, let's not keep arguing. Let's continue with the stories because we do have a lot of them. But we'll go to comments after this one.
What I'm trying to say is, I think using that rhetoric is getting
Wait,
people.
hold on. It's not rhetoric. It's literally what it is. It's a war.
Okay, fine.
It's not a
But by-
long-term
but by
war.
saying
If it was
that-
a long-term war, then I would call it a long-term war.
But by saying that, you're allowing people to go straight to, oh, it's going to be Afghanistan, oh, it's going to be Iraq right away, years and years.
Nobody's saying that.
And millions of
that would
casualties.
be if I wanted to say that, I would say this is a forever war. I didn't say it's a forever
But
war
people
yet.
are already starting to say, oh, it's going to turn into a forever
It could
war.
be if
They're very easily shipping that way without knowing what the strategy even is.
Hold on.
Proper.
Even without a strategy, if there's a major strike on U.S. soil, it's going to be a forever war, guarantee you.
If these are all ifs, it might happen. Oh, let's start panicking before anything happens.
Come on.
Almost everything that he's doing that seems herky-jerky has an ultimate strategic purpose to diminish the power of the Chinese and to turn Russia and China against each other and to have a cultural revolution, counter-revolution in the United States that makes our adversaries think that we are serious and dangerous, whether it's closing the border or having immigration reform or pressuring Mexico about fentanyl or recalibrating the Pentagon, you name it, and are economically more powerful. Instead, they just say, well, he tweeted this or his tariffs. But actually, there is a plan, and it's working.
Yes, it sure is.
Almost everything that he's doing.
Yeah, and I agree with that, but I just don't agree with the strategic
turning
engagement
into
of
a forever
Iran right
war.
now. And I also think they need to reconsider their manufacturing capabilities. I know they're trying to revamp them as we speak. They're trying to transition away from these high dollar munitions that Russia has a much better manufacturing process right now for the type of wars that are going on.
But also, this conflict with Iran has been going on for a lot longer than a lot of people that are seeing as what's happening just right now. I'm using that as a segue to a clip. Don't jump on me. From Scott, I know him. From Scott Jennings, quote, Trump isn't starting a war. He's ending a regime at war with the U.S. and Western civilization for 47 years.
Okay.
I mean, they did.
I can say that about Afghanistan. You can say that about Iraq. I mean, you'd literally be at war across the entire world. Focus on the Western Hemisphere.
Okay.
It is going to have some impact on the economy of China because that's where they get their oil from Iran. And what we did in Venezuela, what we did in China, what we did in Iran has as much to do with China, I think, as anything. I also want to say, may God rest the souls of those troops. But they died in a noble cause. And as Buddy said, 47 years, Americans are dead. The largest state sponsor of terrorism in the world. I totally disagree with you about the threat not being imminent. I spoke to very senior administration officials yesterday. They believe that the Iranian regime was about to fire ballistic missiles, not at the United States, but into U.S. military bases and civilian targets. They were going to attack Israel. They are already attacking other Gulf states.
You can't make the case back then. Apparatus has assessed that there was not imminent threat.
I know. My guess is I've spoken to higher-ranking officials than you. On the uranium enrichment, the United States offered them free, unlimited, lifetime, civilian-grade nuclear fuel. They said no. They had given us the runaround about their intentions on enriching uranium for military purposes. How long do you want to wait? Death to America? Death to Israel? How long do you want to wait? We waited 47 years. We have crossed every red line. Every president says they want to do something about it. Only Donald Trump had the guts to do it. You said you're not shedding any tears for the regime, but you appear just not to like Donald Trump enough to be mad about it. This is a good thing.
He's the guy who's going to bring peace and not start wars.
Yeah, and he is bringing
pause
peace.
it for a second, just because I don't want to get a strike because it is CNN.
Yeah. Now owned by Paramount.
Iran has been at war with us for 47 years. The central pillar of the regime is death to America. The other pillar is death to Israel, who is our ally. They have been at war with us. They have been killing American personnel and American soldiers for nearly 5 decades. This is not an attempt to start a war. This is an attempt to prevent further conflict, This is an attempt to get the largest state sponsor of terror off the field. This is an attempt to stabilize the Middle East. I don't view this actually as
Okay, and
starting
you can
a
leave
war
it
as
there.
much.
And yeah, I can't agree with the justifications they're giving to go in there. Number one, I mean, we can go point by point through this. Number one, he's going to say, we've offered to give them unlimited uranium. They were already enriching themselves and letting the UN in there, and it wasn't weaponized uranium is the thing, and they're allowed by international law to have what they were doing. So to ban them from doing that, but allow every other country to do it, that would be disregarding international law. So I don't think the enrichment of uranium, number one, is a good point. Number two, hold on. Number two, what he said was, we had credible information they were going to launch an attack against a base. Well, if you're going to justify a war against a credible intelligence that they were, you're going to look back to the Iraq war and said, oh, well, they had weapons of mass destruction, which they never did. You literally have to, at this point, as an American, you kind of have to wait to be struck until you can strike back.
But there, for example, I do disagree with Scott, and I do disagree with that sort of framing around why, and it's been a forever war and they're coming after us, etc. I do disagree with him in a lot of those aspects, and I agree with you in that aspect as well. But I'm just saying, I think it goes into the bigger play of the security strategy that the U.S. is implementing now that we haven't seen before, or at least not for a very long time.
Well, I would also say his other talking point was they had Trump derangement syndrome. I'm a firm supporter of Trump on most of the things he does, but I firmly call him out when I don't like things he's doing. Mm-hmm. This happens to be one of those things that I don't like. Now,
for me, I'm just saying, don't panic yet.
You don't mind it. That being said, I didn't like the jibby jab. I called him out on that. I've called him out time and time again. And then again, I've praised him. And a lot of people say, oh, I praise Trump too much. When he does something good, I call it out. When he does something bad, I call it out. Same with Danielle Smith and Pierre Polyev.
And with this one, I'm just saying to everyone, I guess, hold your tongue before you. It's been what, 2-3 days.
Yeah, but it's
hold your tongue until you have actual things to criticize.
But it's not
instead of it might be this, it might happen this. They might put boots on the ground. They might retaliate.
It's not the long-term strategy I want to see. I wanted to see.
But it's not long-term yet.
I don't. It is long-term because he's having military operations outside of the Western Hemisphere. And once he does it once, he can do it again and again. I want to see him completely focus on the Western Hemisphere.
Okay,
and
you completely focus on the Western Hemisphere, and then things happen to the Western Hemisphere that you could have prevented.
Other allies have to deal with the stuff outside of the Western Hemisphere, just like there are cartels and organizations within Central and South America that influence Europe, that influence Israel and other countries. It's the U.S.'s job to handle that.
Okay, but think of it as
I'm not going to be convinced that this was justified at this point.
We'll see. From Amuse says about NATO, quote, I'm old enough to remember when Trump wondered aloud whether NATO would come to our aid if we called for their help. He was right again. NATO allies, UK, Germany, France, and Spain specifically, refused to let us use our bases in their countries for the strike against Iran. Of course, now the British citizens are being attacked in Dubai. They've changed their mind. Things are going so well that France decided to send their carrier strike group over there. Fair weather, friends.
Now, I do agree with this, even though I disagree with what's going on in Iran, and I think the regional partners in that region should have handled that. I think there's a lot of weak allies that the U.S. has, and this is the big advantage that the BRICS countries have. China, Iran, and Russia. And
that's why you have to starve them all.
China, Iran, and Russia are absolutely connected at the hip, and they have a firm alliance, so much so they want to make it look like these are disconnected wars. Mm-hmm. Trump has a lot of allies that are not only bad allies and won't let him use the bases. They are literally been trying to undermine the administration from 2016, specifically the UK and the EU.
And they're useless, and they've been captured, both ideologically, but also almost conquered by the same people that are trying to go against the US. And now it looks like, at least with Keir Starmer in the UK and Spain, they're the ones dictating the decisions, and ideologically, they're completely aligned. Again, that dichotomy between oppressor-oppressed that eventually leads to communism and Marxism has also infiltrated a lot of the powers that the U.S. used to be able to rely on that it no longer can rely on.
Well, they want Trump's help when it came to Russia. Trump didn't want to be part of that, but he didn't pull out. Those were his allies. He said, okay, Financially,
You do it.
we're going to start to pull out. We'll shift responsibility for you. He did that over a year's period of time, so the EU could actually afford it. He's the one manufacturing the weapons for them. If they want to continue that war, he did it in an appropriate way where he was their ally. They haven't done the same in return.
The problem with NATO is that we'll be there for them 100%. But I'm not sure that they'd be there for us. If we gave them the call, gentlemen, we are being attacked. We're under attack by such and such a nation. I know them all very well. I'm not sure that they'd be there. I know we'd be there for them. I don't know that they'd be there for us. The problem with NATO is that...
And a lot of people criticize them a lot, but now we're seeing exactly what he said was going to happen and what he predicted.
Yeah. And one more thing here. A lot of these NATO countries are complaining, well, Trump didn't warn us he was going to do the strike on Iran. Yeah, because you have massive connections to Iran. I'm specifically talking about the Canadian government here, but not only the Canadian government. This is also the EU and the UK. There's a reason he's not going to tell you when he's actually going to do a strike, because he can't trust you and he knows you're not going to be there for him. Mm-hmm. So as much as I disagree with what's going on in Iran, strategically not telling a lot of the supposed U.S. allies, there's not a firm alliance here. And ideologically, they're completely opposed when you look at Trump's vision of the future in the Western Hemisphere compared to Canada. When you look at what the EU's ideology is, they're basically inviting their conquerors in. Okay.
That's why I'm saying you can't just close your eyes and say, oh, we're America first, now nothing's going to happen. When
I didn't say that.
Every single other country that you used to rely on has been conquered and infiltrated by the powers that you are still trying to go after you and are trying to make you not a power anymore.
I didn't say that, because if I was America first, I would say nothing outside the U.S. What I'm saying is nothing outside the Western Hemisphere.
Except the entire Western Hemisphere has been infiltrated and in some ways conquered by those same powers that are vying to take over the power that the U.S. has. The U.S. cannot have power within the Western Hemisphere if it doesn't have power.
Oh, wait, now we need power of the whole world. That's the problem.
Not power of the whole world, but again, going back to the whole not might makes right, but might makes, you do need to be strengthened and have strong allies before you can try to shut your doors and say, now we're safe, now we're good.
Look, and I think Steve Savaro did put it there when he was talking about that document. There's a strategy of the Western Hemisphere, and then there's a separate strategy within that same document of weakening China. The issue you're going to have with that is Russia, China, and Iran, all three aren't within the Western Hemisphere. So
exactly, but the thing is, you can try to make it a multipolar world, but if this pole is trying to continue to attack the other pole, then the other pole can't shut its doors and say we're America first now.
What I'm saying
or we're the Western Hemisphere first now, because a lot of that Western Hemisphere has also been infiltrated and conquered by the other powers on the other pole. So you can't just imagine the pole doesn't exist anymore, and that it has no power
I don't want to see the U.S. run the entire world.
It won't run the entire world, but again, it can't run this part of the world if this part of the world is also trying to be run by them.
And one of the big points I make when I say I don't want to see the U.S. run the world is because the neocons may come back to power, or Gavin Newsom can come in. It's very bipolar in its ideology in general. Yes, I do like Trump, but it's not going to be a serious long-term strategy, because you're not going to have 50 years of Trump.
And with that, I agree. And I agree there is that danger, that this strategy that right now it does make a lot of sense. If taken up by the Democrats, it would turn into what they want to turn it into.
I agree with the Western...
Or even more cooperation with the other poles.
I agree with the Western Hemisphere strategy. When it comes to the Chinese strategy, I want to see shipping lanes and economic warfare, not outright military bombings of Iran and other countries in order to hamstring China.
The thing is, because they're allied now, and they, at least in the background, they're allied now, and they're that pole of the world, and they're trying to strengthen themselves.
So
if you're trying to go against China, you're also going to
I don't agree with the bombing.
Republic of Alberta says Iran is the only obstacle to the creation of greater Israel.
Yeah, and that's the big thing that we're kind of getting sidetracked on, is the one country that benefits immensely from this short, medium, and long term is Israel. Israel is the big winner here, and that's why they wanted to kind of start this. Other countries do have short or medium term benefits, but almost none have long term benefits.
Harmony says once faith is vitally important. That's when we were talking about religion.
Yeah.
Republic of Alberta says, well, Canada has 2.3 trillion in debt, so we could use some more revenue.
Yeah, and actually, Canada would be one of the Canada and Alberta are the big winners with the oil price. Not so much Canada because they still want to hamstring Alberta. But man, this would be a prime opportunity to capitalize on the price of oil.
Republic of Alberta says, lol, Iran produces 20,000 annually, make peace, Israel. And also says Iran has been manufacturing missiles since the Iran-Iraq war ended in 1988.
Yeah, they have underground cities called missile cities that they haven't hit. They hit a lot of the underground nuclear facilities. They haven't hit these missile cities. And right now, Iran is just taking the brunt of it because they know time is on their side. And eventually they're going to start launching back.
Tal says China imported an average of approximately 1.38 million barrels per day of Iranian oil in 2024. Over 90% of Iran's total oil exports that year, valued at around 32.5 billion.
Yeah.
And says a hard place that the U.S. and the West is also in is that Israel could actually do
a nuke. Yeah.
And blame it on the Iranian domestic F-up.
Yeah.
Sorry,
and what I'm going to say about this, they're saying they want to hamstring China's oil supply from Iran. Okay, but you just don't have the munitions to do it on a long-term basis. You're not going to be able to shut down that shipping lane. I don't think they're going to get long-term control over it. They have enough for 4 weeks, at most 8 weeks. So yeah, you're going to shut down the oil supply for 8 weeks. I mean, yeah, maybe they have bombed a lot of the oil infrastructure in the country though. So maybe that is a point against what I was saying there. I just thought of it. Steve
Zervaro says, correct on US SAM or SAM and S2S lack of superiority. And then says incorrect on new air-to-gen AIM 260 Joint Advanced Tactical Missile, G8AM stealth compatible long-range replacement for the AMRAAM. And then says incorrect on the next gen. These are all terms that I don't understand.
No, he might have been talking about the
one containing multiple hypersonic darts. Source Alex Hollings.
Yeah, a lot of the hypersonic missiles Russia has, they don't have a counter for at this point. So
Talatalk says Rubio is a much stronger player in the U.S. government advances. I think they're trying to give that illusion.
But he wasn't.
Away.
He wasn't, and the people that are surrounding him and that he has alliances with, and I forget a lot of their names because they're smaller players within the administration, and I know the bigger players' names, but it's the one guy that you freaking love that is a neocon.
Who?
He has the accent with the gray hair.
Oh, Kennedy. I just love how he talks.
And what's his first name?
Senator
John
Kennedy?
No. John would be.
Why do I always forget? I know his last name is Kennedy, but
anyway,
I just like how his insults because they're very funny. I don't like his actual strategy or his actual points. I just like how he insults
the neocon wing, other than Susie Wilds, because Susie Wilds is the one that really pushed Rubio up there and got the other people into the place. She's kind of burned herself, but got everybody else positioned extremely well within the administration. The problem is they're positioned extremely well. I just don't like the neocon wing of the Conservative Party. I think that's the George Bush wing of the party. And I thought we moved past that with Trump, or at least I hoped.
I think they're using Rubio. And I think J.D. Vance in a few years will actually be the one that comes out. And that's why he's focusing, and they're putting him more on the national side. That's my opinion. And then they might use Rubio to just burn him after.
We'll see how this turns out, but they're burning themselves for the midterms, and they need the midterms. Otherwise, there's going to be impeachments.
Well, but again, this has only been a few days. We'll see how it ends up before the midterms.
Yeah.
It's still a ways away. I mean, it's pretty close by, but it's still a bit ways away.
He's completely lost.
People panicked about Iran last year. It was 12 days.
He started losing the anti-war wing, and the anti-war wing, it was a huge...
but a lot of the anti-war wing is being retarded by saying, let's just close everything and pretend nothing's happening around the world.
The problem is the anti-war wing is more important than I think Trump realizes, because it's a lot of the independent influencers that are making content.
But a lot of those influencers are coming out to be insane.
No, they're not.
Yes, like Tucker.
No. Okay.
Like Megyn Kelly, like Candace Owens. I mean, that is that wing that's now coming up. MTG,
you also have
crazy feminist.
You also have Dave.
Another insane guy that always has the wrong opinion. I always forget it too because I don't like him. But another insane opinion.
Okay.
Again, all of that said, looks more and more like they have no idea what they're talking about.
Okay, I think the neocon wing is.
I don't agree with the neocons. I'm saying they're.
But I want them to
You're
burn. Literally reciting their talking
I want them
points.
to burn Rubio.
Okay.
I think they're just using him.
Okay, let's continue.
Tal says, I don't call it a war right now either, just like a punch fight isn't called a feud. And that's why I say I don't want to call it a war yet, because it's just making people ramp up in their brains. Oh, it's Afghanistan.
No.
It's a forever war, which it's not.
And I would like
it's
to
been a
make,
few
I don't,
days.
want, I don't want to make this distinction because the United States has been involved in so many forever wars. People think now when you call something a war, it has to be a forever war, but that's not the case. When you bomb a country to this extent, it is a war, even if it is a more short-term war. So a lot of people have gotten away from the fact that a war doesn't have to be a long-term war to be a war.
Sure.
Okay.
I'm just saying it's rhetorically, it's not helping.
And I honestly...
And it's getting people into tailspins that I think are not justified yet. I might be wrong.
And I honestly already think we're really in a World War III, or at least the precursor, because Iran, Russia, and China are really playing the U.S. off of each individual tip of the spear. So they're really draining them in Ukraine, then they're doing this in Iran, then they're having them pull.
But if you're agreeing that they're doing that, then what? You just want to allow them to continue to do that while you fight an economic World War III? An economic World War III?
They're trying, what their strategy is to bait the United States in, and the United States is taking that bait.
The thing is, I don't know if they get the U.S. to take the bait, if they're able to back it up.
They can.
Especially with what the U.S. has been doing strategically over here.
Typically, they wouldn't be able to unless they have them divided on so many fronts, or when they try to go for one front, they've already drained so much of their ammunition's manufacturing.
Because for me, this is just another part of that draining. And a lot of people are seeing it as the end goal. I think this is just going to be part of the draining
of the U.S.
Of the power. No, of the...
This is draining U.S. military capacity right now. The big weakness that is here right now is U.S. military manufacturing, because they hadn't completed the transition to a cheaper manufacturing base and a quicker manufacturing base, and because it's a for-profit.
I will agree this might have been a little bit too soon.
And I will agree. And it's a for-profit military manufacturing base, which it's going to be hard to compete. And we're seeing the holes in that right now.
The U.S. Rafa says, hello, Rafa.
Oh, good to see you, Rafa.
And also asks, how will attacking Iran make U.S. groceries cheaper? Well, we are seeing gas prices go down.
More expensive. No, it's going up. Gas prices are increasing dramatically right now. Yes, by 50%.
But we'll see what happens in a few days. That's what I'm saying.
As long as the war's going on, it's higher.
I'm saying...
And after it's done,
stop panicking.
And after it's supposedly done in 4 weeks, which I think there's a good chance he pulls the pin.
Or before that.
Oil prices are still going to remain high because now there's going to be a tax on a lot of shipping lanes, I believe, after this.
We'll see.
Okay.
Rafa says, I agree with you, Guy. Rafa and I usually disagree on these kinds of things, too.
Yeah. But you're more pro-war, I'm more anti-war.
I'm not pro-war. I'm not pro-war. I'm pro being able to focus on the West without having the imminent threats all over there and closing your eyes and saying nothing's going to happen to us. We're America first.
When somebody accuses you of
something. Because that's what Mexico tried to do. Look where Mexico
is. When somebody accuses you of something and you yell back, I'm not pro-war. You are.
You're doing it to annoy me. I know that.
Your microphone.
I know you're doing it to annoy me, but...
No, I'm not.
I'm not pro-war.
Okay.
I'm pro... sit and have a little bit more discernment before saying this is an all-out war. It's boots on the ground.
Sorry, you're pro blanket bombing a country, just not boots on the ground.
It depends on what country it is and how long it takes. Tall Talk says, I generally support DJT2, which is incredibly exhausting here in Canada. Oh, I know. Believe me. I supported him before you supported him.
Yeah, we support him.
He used to call me Baby Trump as an insult. He called me Baby Trump.
As much as I might disagree with what's kind of going on in Iran to a degree with Trump, I support him immensely on a lot of different levels. And I think he's pushing back on a lot of what the globalist and New World Order plans were. I think a lot of his allies are trying to undermine him, and he's having to push back on that as well. And I will bring up this. There is one good add-on effect of what's happening with the Iran war. It's putting a huge hurt on Europe and a lot of the countries that are trying to undermine Donald Trump right now. Even though there is allies, people don't traditionally think they're trying to undermine him, but there is a huge internal battle going on there. But yeah, we supported Trump in Canada. You before me. Yeah. Now we support him in Mexico, and
it's a bit less. It's a bit less insane, but people here don't, like in Canada, they don't listen to reason. Here, sometimes it's just because they don't know the full version. And once you tell it or once you explain it, they're a little bit more amenable to saying, oh, I didn't know that, or I hadn't seen that clip. In Canada, it's just, he's the devil, he's insane.
Yeah, but there are a lot of people around the world that do support him. And when they, it's about a 50-50, I would say. And a lot of influencers talk about this when they travel, and they're first scared to say they're from the US, but then they do. And then it's either a 50-50. Oh, we love Trump or we hate Trump. And when you ask them why they love Trump, it's because he puts his people first. And that's why
he has given that strategy kind of out to the world too, and say, well, you can do it too.
But, and this is why the other
Stop
Western
relying on the
leaders
US.
absolutely hate him, because they're not putting their people first. They're lining their pockets first, and they're trying to cash in on the ship before it sinks because they want to align themselves with China. This is why a lot of
And
people
continue with the globalist dream that they've had.
This is why a lot of people in Canada that do support Trump, it's because that's the kind of leadership they want in their country, somebody that's going to put their country first. And that's why Alberta independence is so strong in Canada. And amongst the independence movement, they might not want to be the 51st state, but they still have a admiration and a respect for Donald Trump and what he's doing.
And I think it's not a good idea for Alberta to be the 51st state.
No, not at all.
Let me just quickly read Rafa, who says, I think this is why Iran wanted to have nuclear boom booms.
Yeah, well, and that's the one thing.
That was a danger too.
Well, after, if this thing does simmer down and they do pull the pin, Iran is definitely going to go towards getting a nuclear armament at this point. And you say, well, why? Because you can look at a small country that's not as well armed as Iran, which would be South Korea, and nobody messes with South Korea because they have a nuke. So if Iran had a nuke, they wouldn't be being messed with like this.
But that's why they wanted to prevent it.
Yeah, but you're just not going to be able to. As a military analyst, which I'm not, but I know a lot about Iran, their military, the mountainous region, and a lot of other things. They're just not going to win that kind of war. They can win air superiority, but they can only maintain that for a certain number of weeks because they don't have enough munitions.
Next.
More comments, or we have...
We have some on our UMBLE, but I know YouTube would be very happy with them.
Okay.
So Ethel, we will get to you in a little bit. Let's continue. From Marinoffel, quote, protesters marched past Trump Tower in New York City carrying a globalized intifada, don't even know if I can say that word, sign alongside the portrait of Iran Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei. Crazy times with Iranians chanting for Trump and Americans chanting for Khamenei.
Yeah, and I just want to show the different kinds of protests on the ground and what's kind of going on, but nothing's really massive with these protests because nobody's really funding these protests.
Deportation, deportation, education.
Okay, and you can kind of leave it there. And I just want to give different looks of different protests that are happening. Mainly in New York is where the protests are happening, but it's nothing like what was going on with Palestine. And I would
But
say,
again, those are still the same ones that fall under that dichotomy of oppressor oppressed.
Well,
and that's why they connect all of this to their cause as well, their revolution.
And again, the leadership of the Democratic Party and the people that are in the kind of the uniparty are in complete support of the Iranian strikes. They actually want them to go farther. They want a long-term war. That's why you're not seeing the funding for these independent leftist protests like you would normally see.
Yeah. And hold on, where are we? I clicked on the wrong one. There we go. Allegedly, it seems, although
what
there's
section are we in?
the first one.
U.S.-Iran?
Yes, we're still on the first section. Allegedly, again, this is very allegedly, but from Nick Sorter, quote, Mojtaba Khamenei, the son of the Ayatollah, has been selected as the new supreme leader of Iran as the country burns, per New York Post citing Iran intelligence. Again, this is all very preliminary. Many believe Mojtaba is actually more of an extremist than his father, so the U.S.'s response to this is going to be interesting. They have not, the Iranian regime itself has not yet publicly confirmed the selection of the supreme leader, but a formal announcement might be expected soon.
Yeah,
And again, I'll say this, take this with a huge grain of salt.
you're going to get whoever it is, and it's probably him. You're going to get somebody that's far more radical, and I'll put it into context in a moment. But if this is also his son, you're going to better believe he's going to activate some cells within the United States if he has access to any. That being number one. But number two, I know a bit about Iran. I know a ton about Russia. And with Russia, the most moderate leader within the country is Vladimir Putin. Everybody else that could potentially take over for him is extremely radical, and they're the ones pushing him to do a lot more in Ukraine than he's currently doing. They don't want him negotiating with the United States. They want far greater ties with China so they can have a stronger alliance against the U.S. Putin is the moderate within that country. And I think the last leader they had that they kind of got rid of was the moderate within Iran. Now, it's not to say he's moderate. It's just say he's the most moderate of all the possible choices. And the three choices, the U.S. had three people selected that they were hoping would come to power within Iran. What happened is they said, well, their initial strikes were too effective. They ended up killing the three people they wanted to they were hoping might take over the country.
Yeah. About a while ago when we were talking about China and Trump and the relationship there, or the anger there, the anti-China stance that Trump has had, it's been for a long time, and a lot of people are unearthing these interviews where he was talking about China and the potential of China gaining more and more power all the way back in the 80s. But apparently he was also talking about Iran. So from Jack Tron says, quote, "Dear woke right morons, if you think Trump sold out to Israel, you're an idiot. Trump has had the same position on Iran for over 40 years. He said in the 1980s, when you get the respect of other countries, then the other countries tend to do a little bit as well as you do, and you can create the right attitudes. The Iranian situation is a case in point."
Yeah, I just don't think it's a winning military battle overall. Even if they get a 4-week strike, which they're going to frame as a win, the overall battle that's happening right now with Iran, China, and Russia, they're slowly whittling down the United States military capacity.
But I will agree with this last bit here. It's your own fault that you're surprised this is happening only because you didn't do your homework or you're just pushing propaganda.
When you get the respect of the other countries, then the other countries tend to do a little bit as you do, and you can create the right attitudes. The Iranian situation is a case in point. That they hold our hostages is just absolutely and totally ridiculous. That this country sits back and allows a country such as Iran to hold our hostages, to my way of thinking, is a horror. And I don't think they do it with other countries. I honestly don't think they do it with other countries.
Obviously, you're advocating that we should have gone in there with troops, etc., and brought our boys out.
I absolutely feel that, yes. I don't think there's any question, there's no question in my mind. I think right now would be an oil-rich nation, and I believe that we should have done it, and I'm very disappointed that we didn't do it, and I don't think anybody would have held us in abeyance. I don't think anybody would have been angry with us, and we had every right to do it at the time. I think we've lost the opportunity.
Okay. And I will also say the two attempts on his life was framed by intelligence agencies that it came from Iran. I don't believe that was the case. That being said, he already has bad animosity towards Iran. If he's sold that from people in the administration that he trusts, that's just going to make even more of a negative outlook on Iran for Trump.
But I will say, I mean, it's no secret that Iran does have a vendetta against the U.S. and against
without a doubt.
U.S. imperialism.
I'm not saying that they don't, but what I'm saying is this is only pushing the alliance of Russia, China, and Iran closer together.
Or starving it.
But what I'm seeing happen is they're being pushed closer together, and their manufacturing for their military capacity is only going up. While the U.S., it's starting to fracture the relationships between the allies, and I think there was already fracturing.
They'd already fractured them.
Yeah, but that's a big issue. So.
But this would have been a good opportunity for those allies to come out even stronger, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of these allies are scared of Trump, and they're not reassessing their relationship. What they're doing is giving 2 or 3 different answers to their view on what Iran is doing. A specific example of this would be Canada. They've given 3 different statements now, 1 for, 1 against, and 1 we need to negotiate and into this. So which one is it? The fact is they want to be able to point to different answers that they've given based upon who they're talking to. And it's not just them doing it. The EU's doing the same thing. Most countries are giving 2 answers. Canada just happens to be the one giving 3.
Because most countries have those two ideologies, I would say, or those two differences, or that dichotomy now that they've created and allowed to come into themselves. Again, the UK is conquered by
Well, they don't want to lose their Muslim vote. They don't want to lose their Muslim voters.
And they allowed them in.
And
now they're sitting in between I was going to say duck and a hard place.
Yeah.
Between a rock and a hard place.
And the reason Mark Carney's giving
Due to their own.
dual answers is because usually it would be, does he want to lose the Israeli bloc of voters, or does he want to lose the Muslim bloc of voters? But the dynamic's different this time, because now you're going to lose the Israeli voter plus the Iranian voter. So you have two groups together here, or the Muslim voter. So it would be a big block, whichever block he lost, because there's a lot of Iranians in Canada.
Do you want me to read comment? Well,
you can read comments.
we have one comment, I think.
I'm going to use the restroom real quick.
Okay, hold on. Where am I? There we go. Tal, and the guy is still injured. His foot is still twisted. So Tal says they want nukes for just one reason. And again, I will continue to point to that 80s interview from Trump and ask the reasoning and the motives as to the America-only people and how much common sense that actually makes. I mean, it sounds really good, but do you want to shut yourself inside a castle, leaving the door open for anybody to come attack you? In my opinion, no. And again, I think a lot of people are panicking way too soon by saying forever war, forever war, forever war, when there's no clear yet, I will say there's some evidence, but there's no clear evidence yet as to it's going to turn into boots on the ground forever war.
Well,
I think a lot of people might want that just so they can continue to go against Trump. I think a lot of people that were disappointed in him for other reasons or got into fights with him for other reasons, like MTG, are now kind of wanting to will that into existence. And yes, we're getting him to put boots on the ground so we can say Trump bad.
I'm absolutely not.
No, I know. I'm not saying you. I'm saying there's a lot of commentary right now that we're seeing of people saying it's a forever war. We can't believe you went to war, and it's not there yet.
You can be against what he's doing without being against Trump.
Yes.
So, and that's exactly how I'm viewing this particular
but a lot of
action.
people, that's what I'm saying. A lot of people with a lot louder voices that we have are coming out on that side. I'm thinking the MTGs, the Nick Fuenteses, other people that have, for some reason, a very strong voice, and they're trying to do everything in their power to destruct everything else that has been successful for the U.S.
Fuentes isn't saying it's a forever war. What he is saying is Israel's the one getting them involved in this, which I think he's absolutely right
But he said
about.
it's going to turn into a forever war.
It potentially could. But
it hasn't.
But I will say this about, because we brought up North Korea earlier and them having a nuke, but they do have a daddy or a babysitter, which is China. They can't do anything because China is kind of in control of them. If Iran does get a nuke, they don't really have anybody that can kind of put them in their place. So they can do what they want with that. And I think their first target would be Israel. But I just don't think they're as close or anywhere near having a nuclear weapon as it's being betrayed. It's being betrayed. They have had a nuclear weapon. We showed the clip for over 20 years now.
And I think that is going to continue to be part of the fog of war and an excuse too. Mm-hmm.
You can't continuously use the same excuse for 20 years.
But that's what I'm saying. That's what they've been doing. Should we move on to the next section?
Yeah.
So it's the Middle East. Again, it's still the India flag. I'm sorry. We're back. I mean, it's basically just the same conversation we're having, just under a different section. So here we go. From Captain Kyle, quote, CNN says Dana's face that she was forced to sit and listen to a Democratic view on her party and how it pertains to the president, the world, and dismantling the Islamic grip is priceless.
I think that it is imperative the Democratic Party wake up and get past their dislike of Donald Trump, President Trump, and their feelings of international conflicts going on. This is about national security. This is about what is possible in the Middle East. This is about being a good neighbor, good partner to the Gulf states and what their aspirations are. This is about supporting the people of Venezuela. This is about dismembering our relationship with, or not dismembering, but resetting our relationship with China. Right now, 55% of the oil production that Iran produces goes to China despite sanctions. You want to support the people of Ukraine? You want to end that war? You have to. There is no getting around dismembering this Islamic Republic. It is non-negotiable. It is not a want to have. It is a have to have. And it's not just for the Iranian people. I think you have to trust the Iranian people. We know this government better than anyone else. When you dismember and decapitate this regime, you are going to see a change in the Middle East, in Venezuela, in China, in Ukraine. And I think, quite frankly, their ideology has really, it's caused a lot of problems for us worldwide. We need to take it seriously. And I think at this point, we have a tremendous opportunity. This will be like ending the Soviet Union, the Berlin Wall. This is a transformational moment for humankind, for
Okay,
security.
and leave it there.
as an
And the reason
American.
I put that, this is definitely what's being told to Trump with inside the administration. He already has a dislike for Iran, which you've seen. He's been told the 2 attempts on his life came from Iran as well. The neocons have his ear within the administration. This is why when we do talk about this potentially turning to a forever war, one major strike from a cell within the United States, that's what this is going to become. Now,
We'll see.
now, I'm not saying that's what it is right now.
Yeah.
But I'm saying this is all the different elements that you need to put in place before you get that have already been put in place, except for the strike.
We'll see.
Okay.
That's all I'm saying is use discernment and wait instead of panicking.
Well, and also what
That's all I've been saying this
Also,
whole
what you're
stream.
having, we've shown the protests within the United States, within New York, and they're very small, the leftist protests.
Mm-hmm.
You're actually having much bigger celebrations from Iranians in the street, which is giving a false context, I think, to Trump if he is watching the news, because Iranians that have fled the country, live in the U.S. and other parts of the world, aren't the same Iranians that live within the country. I just don't see a color revolution happening within the country. I think the regime, even without the leadership that they had, has a strong hold on that country. It's a party. It wasn't just one leader. It's not like how it is in a lot of other countries where a lot of the power resides in the leader. It resides in the structure of the regime.
But my question is to a lot of people, I guess to you as well. We even talk a lot about the issues with bringing Islam and different cultures into the West and the effects it has had and how it's dominated the UK, how it's changed laws in the UK and how it continues to, and the dangers that it does pose and has posed to society, to religion, to culture, to everything else. How do you reconcile that with saying, well, let's just leave them continue to do that, but still complain about it locally?
Leave them in the Middle East.
Yes, but they're here now. They're all over the West right now. So what do
I
you do?
didn't bring them in.
Exactly,
And-
but you have to take them out.
Yes, you can simply just deport them.
Yeah, you deport them and then they find other ways to come in, like the deal that Iran has right now with Mexico, the current regime in Mexico, and other countries in South America and Central America, like Venezuela.
If countries want to have,
Like if you want to fully separate from the whole globalist
hold on,
then you have to actually do something about it.
First of all, no, you can't say that because what the United States wants, potentially under Trump, would maybe no Muslims or deport the radical factions of that. He can't tell countries like Mexico and Canada who they can and can't have in the country.
Well,
that would be crazy.
He kind of has by saying stop, by blocking the southern border with Mexico.
Yeah, no, and that's what I'm saying. He can deport who he wants and block the border, which he's done, and the border's now shut down. So as much as you're going to say, oh, Islamists can come into Mexico and then you just cross the border, it's not so easy to cross the border anymore, except when the next administration comes in if they don't agree with what Trump's done. And that's why
you do have to impose tariffs, for example, or continue with the other strategies he has been implementing to also get rid of those imminent dangerous threats that are within the West Hemisphere he's trying to work with.
He doesn't control the Western Hemisphere.
That's what they're trying to do, though. That's the whole national security strategy.
Yeah, but
and that's the one you said that you're okay with.
No, I'm not
However,
okay.
You
I'm not
can't
okay
have
with
certain countries completely aligned with those that call themselves
I'm not
your
okay
enemy.
with Trump completely colonizing the entire Western Hemisphere.
Not colonizing.
He's going to have trade. Yeah, but that's what you're
I'm
saying
not
right
saying
now.
colonizing, but of course it's going to be the
He doesn't
superior
get to
power
say-
within the Western
He
Hemisphere.
doesn't get to say who comes into these other countries.
No, but he can put sanctions, trades, etc., do it economically, as he's been trying to do.
There's too many other things to
But
worry
also,
about.
yeah, but again, a lot of people, as you said, agree with Venezuela, with what happened with Venezuela. A lot of people agree with going after the cartels in Mexico. Who do you think is also financing and helping all of those regimes and all of those cartels? It's the powers that are trying to get rid of the U.S.
You can
and the Western Hemisphere.
You
all by
can
itself.
connect dots to anybody for anything in any part of the world. So
What I'm saying
you
is you
keep
can't
doing
close
that.
your eyes and say it's all going to be okay. if we just focus on ourselves, because then
That's
you're going to
ridiculous.
see that it's not going to work that way.
Yeah, what you're going to see
Especially
is,
if you want to focus on the Western
okay,
Hemisphere.
you're going to see the United States fall if they try to focus on creating all these wars.
I'm not saying create all these wars. You're literally
overseas.
just putting words in my mouth.
What's
I'm not
going on
saying
in Iran
that.
now? If they keep focusing on Russia and Iran,
if they do
and
this,
China,
if they do that, they've already proven they're-
have. Sorry, let me.
They're trying to prove they're not.
Hold on, let me restate. They're already in a war in Russia. They're already in a war in Iran. They're already prepared for a war in
Democrats
China.
haven't let-
They're already in a war in Venezuela.
The Democrats have tried not to let Trump leave Russia, for example. A lot of people want the U.S. to still be there, and Trump has tried to pull out multiple times and stop financing it and said to the European Union, you do it, you buy weapons from us, but we don't want to be involved with it anymore.
It doesn't matter, even if he's not involved in it. Just the fact that he has to sell the weapons to the Europeans drains the manufacturing capacity of the U.S.
But I agree with, the thing is, I agree with get out of all of these wars and places and things that you're doing, but you can't just set it and forget it, because then you're going to see the consequences of that.
Nobody's watching anymore. Why don't we focus, if there are any questions, and then just go back to the stories. They don't like to see us fight.
You started
You
fighting.
keep bringing up the same argument every time.
Because
though.
you keep bringing up the same one too.
Okay, let's go.
Tal says, Fuentes is speaking too. For his generation, conservatism is changing somewhat.
Yeah.
Or much of, than he said.
I definitely agree. And I think at this point, Israel is becoming a liability, and they need to stop funding it and let it kind of stand on its own 2 feet.
And I do agree with that.
Trump's strategy with Israel was magnificent. Create other Middle Eastern countries that would align
join
with
in.
them.
Yeah.
Everybody said that wasn't possible, but it is possible. And we're seeing that right now because there's an alliance of Middle Eastern countries kind of against Iran. It's just a shame that they just don't do that regionally, rather than they need daddy US in there every time.
Mm-hmm. And I do agree with, and we've said since last year, they should just let them, I mean, I used to say let Israel and Palestine fight their own fight. Stop being involved in all of this. Same with Russia and Ukraine. The thing is, they keep getting pulled in, and they keep seeing that if they just try to set it and forget it, it comes back to bite them.
Yeah.
And it comes back to bite them on the Western Hemisphere, which is the one they're trying to protect.
I disagree.
You just said yeah.
Well, I'm just saying it so we can continue with the show.
Okay. So Ahmad Ahmed says Iran.
Because you
attacked-
keep saying the same talking point to try to start an argument, and I just don't want to get. Yeah, you are. Okay.
So Ahmad Ahmed says, quote, Iran attacked Israel and U.S. military bases in 5 Middle Eastern countries, the UAE, Israel, Qatar, Kuwait, Bahrain, and Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, and these are the Middle Eastern countries that are now kind of stepping up and wanting to participate, which is something new than what has been happening in the past.
Yeah, and a lot of people are also questioning, and it's interesting that Iran went after them that quickly as well.
Yeah.
But this was Trump's, I guess, war declaration. Again, I don't agree with calling it a war yet. Disclosed TV says Trump declares war in Iran, saying the Iranian regime seeks to kill the lives of courageous American heroes may be lost, and we may have casualties. That often happens in war. Again, don't say war, because then it justifies it.
A short time ago, the United States military began major combat operations in Iran.
Pause it.
Objective is
He has to say war, by the way. I don't know if you're aware of this. You're aware why he has to declare it a war? Or
Casualties?
say it's a war. Yeah, if there's casualties, then he can be impeached for it. The war gives him the cover of any kind of impeachment and other people within the administration.
I know, but that's why I don't think it's a good idea.
If it's not a good idea, don't drop the bombs in the first place.
the American people by eliminating imminent threats from the Iranian regime, a vicious group of very hard, terrible people.
And fast forward it.
It's menacing activities.
No.
And we can't take it anymore.
Faster?
Instead, they
Go
attempted
back to where you were and put it at
rebuild their
1.5 speed
regime,
or 2.
A vicious group of very hard, terrible people. Its menacing activities directly endanger the United States, our troops, our bases overseas, and our allies throughout the world. For 47 years, the Iranian regime has chanted death to America and waged an unending campaign of bloodshed and mass murder, targeting the United States, our troops, and the innocent people in many, many countries. Among the regime's very first acts was to back a violent takeover of the U.S. Embassy in Tehran, holding dozens of American hostages.
And you can
for
stop it
400
there. I will say they kind of go into it, and the other people in the administration have said it as well. We're going to do the bombing. It's up to the people to kind of rise up. There's not that uprising in the country. The regime has a firm hold on that country. It's not just the leadership. They have a strong regime all the way down.
And a lot of people that would have fought left. And they're the ones celebrating on the streets, too.
Yeah, and you also,
in other countries.
Also, you're not allowed to own weapons in Iran, so it takes you need a huge uprising when you don't have access to weapons in a country. So.
And from Ryan Gertison says, quote, Iranian teens reacting to U.S. attacking the Islamic regime. One of the students says, I love Trump.
Yeah, and this was in Iran. And there is a sentiment of some people within Iran that don't like the regime. But for the most part, it's not like the sentiment outside of the country. Okay.
They remind me of my students. Because again, I worked at an international school in Vancouver and we had a lot of Iranians. And then you put this in about Quentin Tarantino. I didn't understand why, because I didn't see this news, but from TMZ it says, quote, rumors Quentin Tarantino was ended in a missile strike in Israel are all just BS, and TMZ has learned the film director's family is just fine.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't know he lives in Israel permanently. Now,
I didn't know.
I've known some people that casually have known Tarantino in the past. He runs some really strange crowds. I wouldn't be surprised if he was in the Epstein files. Now, I'm not saying he is, but the fact that he's living in Israel and he's staying over there, even in a time like this, why does he needs some kind of protection? I think the Israeli government's probably giving him.
Maybe.
So
I
yeah,
have no idea.
he's done lots of interviews. Everybody knows he lives in Israel now. I always found it very strange, especially he's stayed there multiple times when Israel's been being bombed. It's almost like he's scared to leave the country.
Has he come to award ceremonies or anything lately?
I haven't seen him, no.
Because the last movie he did was out with Brad Pitt, right?
Yeah, I seen an interview somebody did with him in Israel was the thing. So.
Okay. But now we're moving on to personality.
But he is married to somebody that is from Israel, so
Okay.
maybe that's why, and her family is there. So I don't want to jump to too many conclusions.
You're
but
here. But yeah, who knows? He's a little bit deranged as well. So
well, I
Quite
won't go
deranged.
into the story. I know quite a few stories about him, but I won't go into it.
Should I re-comment to that?
Because he used to come into a lot of bars in Miami with some very strange people.
Again, Hollywood is all weird and seedy. I will agree with that. So nothing would surprise me if anything comes out about him or anybody else within Hollywood that has had a lot of power for a lot of time. Again, it wouldn't be surprising. I don't know why so many people are so surprised
I'll tell you the story once we get off air.
Okay. I'll read some comments and then we'll go into personality politics. Tal says, I actually love watching couples squabble about politics, etc. Might be the only one because we cleared the room.
Yeah.
Tal also says the why having to call it a war reasoning is interesting. I've had to explain that to a few people. And again, I understand the legal, I guess, or in a way, military justification for doing it, but I think it's just ramping up a lot of sentiment that is a bit at the moment I feel it's a bit misplaced.
It's not legal at all. It's just common sense. I bring it down to common sense. If you're blanket bombing a country, you're at war, especially if they're attempting to strike back and they have hit military assets and military soldiers have died from the US side. Not a lot.
Yeah,
but some have died.
As of now, 6, I believe.
Every single aspect I would need to say this is a war. It's a war.
Okay.
It's okay. And okay.
I'm just saying rhetorically, it's not helping.
This is more so a war on the U.S.'s part than Russia's war would be with Ukraine. Why would I say that? Is Russia classifies what they're doing legally as a special military operation. So they're only allowed to release something like 10% of their troops or whatnot. That's why it's classified as that, and it remains classified as that. That being said, the United States has implemented a large amount of military force on Iran. So I think it's hard to classify as anything other than a war. That being said, they haven't put boots on the ground, so maybe that's a lot of people's red line, but...
That's what I'm saying. I'm just saying rhetorically, it's just panicking a lot of people.
It's not
preemptively.
But okay, Trump's even calling it. Trump's calling it a war as well.
I know, but that's
You're
why
the only one not calling it a war.
No, that's why I said I understand that maybe militarily or legally or consequence-wise you have to call it that, but I think rhetorically it's not helping within the conversation.
And wait, hold on. This is a good point, maybe. Okay, so you won't classify it as a war now, or you maybe will. How long does it have to go on before you would classify it as a war?
until it starts looking like a war.
It already looks like a war. The whole country's, because you don't live over there. You're not the one getting bombed.
Okay, I would say more like if it goes past the 20-day mark and there's boots on the ground and there's actual American, more important.
The strikes they did to take out the initial leadership, they took out the 3 other options that they wanted to kind of come up and rise up in the country. They wanted to keep the current regime kind of in place, kind of what they did in Venezuela. They've eliminated
That's
that.
what I was going to
This guy might be the only guy left, and I don't think he has the respect of the Iranian people that live within Iran. That's not to say outside of Iran. I know for a fact people outside of Iran like the guy.
And with that, I would parallel Maria Corina Machado and a lot of people around Latin America. And here, for example, people we talked to saying, why didn't they just install her right away? Because within the context of Venezuela, inside of Venezuela, it's not that easy to do. And you do have to work slowly. And I continue to say, it's not going to be night and day change. It's going to take a while. And you do have to have the support and maintain those dogs on the leash of the current regime, or the ones that were left.
2 reasons they didn't install her in Venezuela, and they went with the traditional regime that was already there. Number 1, the traditional regime can keep the military in check so there's not civil unrest, so they don't break apart and start guerrilla armies, and it's been a good move so far. Yeah. Number 2, if he installs a globalist, it's just you're going to have your own allies kind of working against you behind the scenes, trying to wait you out for the next administration.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and yeah, I do agree with the not installing Maria Corina Machado.
Yeah,
right away. Especially with her worrying comments.
I don't think they should install her at all. But that being said,
at all. I would say at all as well. They do need to get rid of the current ones.
Well, also
eventually.
She made a concerning comment, or multiple comments, multiple times, saying if she does go in there, she's going to arrest everybody in the military and everybody that kind of committed crimes within the country.
That's how you get a coup.
That's how you get a coup. All those people have massive powers that inside the country. They're going to start guerrilla factions and the country's going to be in chaos. Yep. You're not going to be able to extract the oil that you want from the country. Mm-hmm. The oil, a lot of that oil they're currently extracting is going to rebuild Venezuela right now.
Mm-hmm. Why'd you put him? From Vigilant Fox quote, Sam Harris.
I hate him as well, but
Sam Harris on Iran, we should be doing what we can do to engineer regime change. See, that I don't agree with. Well, we should have done this ages ago. No, you shouldn't have.
No, I understand. He is massive support of Israel, but he's also has the sentiment that the left elite has. Mm-hmm. So people like Hillary Clinton want to go into Iran. The Uniparty wants to go into Iran. What they don't want is what Trump is going to potentially do, which is going to Iran and then leave. They want to make this a forever war. They've made this extremely clear.
And this is how they would do it, which is why I wouldn't agree with this.
One of the big politicians is John Bolton. Not the John Bolton people keep recommending us to watch in Canada, but within the American administration. And he's outwardly said, we want a long-term war. We don't want Trump to go in and out. And the fact that he's willing to say that on national TV is crazy.
What I'm saying is Trump should go in and out.
Yeah.
Have Muslims killing or oppressing other Muslims, no one on the left cares, right? And really, the numbers don't even matter. The numbers can be tenfold or more greater than the worst estimates of what's happened in Gaza. And no one cares, in Syria or Yemen or Sudan. I mean, it's just not a thing to even care about that, or even to report about it for the most part in the mainstream media. But if you have Jews killing Muslims for any reason, even in the immediate aftermath of the worst massacre of Jews since the Holocaust, that is a moral emergency on the left, right? So that's how their moral intuitions are calibrated, and we must try to reset those weightings at some point, because none of that's going to age well, right? I mean, this is, we're going to continue to see conflict with Islamists and jihadists at the borders and even internal to scores of open societies. And we should absolutely be standing with the people of Iran. We should be doing what we can do to engineer a regime change. We should have done this ages ago. This is a failing. This is a bipartisan failing. Obama was terrible on this. Biden was terrible on this. The scandal around both their presidencies, that they were so bad on this issue.
But I mean, when has an actual regime change ever worked? Never.
Well, it wasn't a regime change. They were just having a tough time having a justification to go into Iran, because all the Democrats that were in power did want to go in. They just didn't know how to frame it and how to get that thing started. The thing is, Trump just doesn't give a shit, and he just went in there. But I also think if he goes in and out, it defings a lot of the rhetoric for a long-term war.
And that's my point, essentially.
So why did you make that point to begin with?
Because I keep saying,
But
we still don't have. That's why I'm trying to say when I say we still don't have evidence that it's going to turn into a forever
but
war.
what I'm saying is he's done this.
That's why I say 20 days.
He's done this a few times in a few different ways. Where he'll do something that looks very dramatic on the surface, but it defangs long-term tensions like the 12-day war. That being said, he's playing with absolute fire here, because if he goes in here, especially this isn't in and out like last time. He's talking about 4 weeks this time. This gives the neocons a long time to sit something up on U.S. soil to make it look like a splinter cell, which is going to get U.S. civilian sentiment all fired up, trying to press Trump into a long-term war. And that's the reason why he's playing with fire, if he's trying to do a short-term strike in order to avoid a long-term war. I don't think this is the way you do it, and especially not for 4 weeks. It gives the neocons too much time. Not just the neocons, but also the war party of the left.
That's why I said 20 days.
Okay.
But, interestingly, he sounds very similar to Scott Jennings, whom I usually do like and agree with, but with the clip we showed, I also don't agree with that framing and that justification of that he was trying to give either.
But he's also very, he's outright.
Sam Harris.
Yeah, Sam Harris. He's very in support of the Jewish part of the government that's very pro-war as well.
And you have to stop listening to them when they go that way.
But he's also very much an American leftist. So he echoes a lot of different sentiments. That's why it's a good voice to kind of hear, even though I don't agree with him and I don't like him.
To hear, but not to listen to is what I was trying to say.
And I will say this about Israeli government. It's not the entire Israeli government that's trying to press all these wars. It's it's Netanyahu and that part of the administration. They have locked up a lot of their past presidents in Israel, and Netanyahu's on the chopping block, and that's why he has to continue these wars. They've already put him up for impeachment a few times, and they're kind of after him. But he knows if he can just continue wars, they can't do anything.
Yeah,
because he's a necessary evil in their eyes at that point. So
just the evil, just the evil. From the Patriot Oasis quote, Senator John Fetterman blasts Democrats and CNN for continuing to criticize Trump's strikes in Iran. There wasn't any kind of outcry after the left, from the left after Iran ended 30,000 of their young people.
Well, and I got a soft spot for Fetterman because he does come out in support of Trump a lot of times, even though maybe he doesn't like him or he's in the other party. I was going to say something.
But it's the same justification that they're all using, apparently.
It's a little bit different because I don't really take John Fetterman's very working class and his district's working class. So he'll represent kind of what the people want. And he's got a lot of Trump supporters in his district that actually vote for him. I don't view him like the traditional elitist within the leftist party that are warmongers. I think he's not a warmonger, but he's willing to kind of support Trump in certain aspects and understand what's kind of happening.
He's more of a voice of reason, I would say. The only voice of reason almost within the Democrat Party.
Destroying the Iranian leadership. And there wasn't any kind of outcry from parts of the left after Iran executed about 30,000 of their young people that were just simply protesting for democracy. Why? Why can't we just objectively say what Israel has been able to accomplish, since they were calling for a ceasefire back in 2024? Hamas would be still there. Sinwar would be alive. Hezbollah would be allowed to fire thousands of rockets into Israel now too. And then now Houthis too. And Iran would be able to be perceived as a strong military presence in the region. Turns out it really wasn't effective. Now here we are, we're in a much better place now. If anyone wants those things that they claim that they do, like peace, and they can never allow Iran to acquire a nuclear bomb, when someone actually did that could actually make sure that's possible. And I'm open to a better opportunity for more peace and prosperity for the Iranian people, for more security that Israel deserves that. So that's the point. And this was not an illegal war based on terms of what the War Powers Act is.
Senator.
And he has had brain surgery, just if anybody doesn't know, that he has a bit of a speech impediment. That being said, I actually believe he actually believes those things. I disagree with a lot of the things he said there, but I actually feel like he actually does believe a lot of that.
And when he wonders, or when a lot of people wonder, and I'll say it again, why some Democrats or the insane progressives do support Iran right now, but they didn't speak up about the atrocities that the regime was committing, is because of that oppressor-oppressed dichotomy. They see the regime as the oppressed by the imperialist America that they're so against. So that is where it connects for them. And that is where the oppression and the things that Iran was doing you're able to kind of look away from that because you want to support the revolution and the essentially communist ways that they've been using too.
Yeah.
And the rhetoric that they've been using. And Rupert Lowe.
Oh, and I will just mention one more thing because I was watching Taylor Marshall before we went on and his takes on the war, because it was coming from a Christian take. And he was going into the fact that Iranian Islam is a lot different than a lot of the other Islamic factions. There's two major factions. They believe they're the original faction coming from the 12 descendants of Muhammad, and that the 12th descendant is actually still alive and in hiding and will emerge at the end of the world. But a lot of the other, that's why you're seeing this this alliance of other Islamic countries, because it's a different form of Islam. And it's just,
the Islam within Iran sees itself as the oppressed.
Yeah,
by the Sunnis.
But that's why you're seeing this internal conflict among Islamic countries. They want to unify under one form of Islam, and they think this is the opportunity.
Now back to Rupert Lowe and Tommy Robinson, and from Andrew Gold. I don't know what he says here.
And I put this in because it does relate because of immigration. And I put in a few stories today that may not seem like they're directly about Iran, but they indirectly do relate. And this one is through immigration, I believe.
I'm afraid I've paid him credit in the past and I'll pay it to him now. Tommy Robinson was right about this when he first talked about it in Luton, around, I think it was 2002, 3, 4, somewhere around then. And he's been consistently right about it. And I think, again, he deserves credit for that. He's obviously got issues which people criticize him for, which I don't know about, and I never met Tommy. I've never spoken to Tommy. But I think he deserves credit for what he's got right. And, I'm not sure he's had that. That's an example of where the establishment's let down the British people. And you've had two-tier justice, two-tier policing. And it's really because people are frightened of basically admitting that post-war multiculturalism has failed. They're frightened of being called a racist, as Emily Maitlis called me, which I ignored.
For more clips like this, follow now.
And he impresses me more and more, and that's why he's taking so much of the voter base away from Reform UK, because he is what a lot of people thought Reform UK was. And Reform UK is trying to appeal more and more to the Muslim voter, and that's the big question. Can somebody like Rupert Lowe actually succeed in the UK because they've allowed so many immigrants into the country?
They've been conquered.
You almost have to appeal to the immigrant base in order to get a majority party. He's not willing to do that, and I respect that. The question is it enough or is it too late? And I almost think it's too late. And that's why Trump is so critical at this point of time for the United States, so they don't allow that mass immigration, which they were starting under Biden.
And that's why we're seeing all of these former powers and allies of the U.S. be so bad right now with the rhetoric that they're saying. I'm thinking Spain, the UK. Well, international law, which, again, you cannot have international law if you cannot actually enforce and enact it. And right now, the U.S. is the only one on this side that is able to do that.
Well, and he's absolutely showed what a fraud was, that you can't shut down the border. And we're going to have another clip in a little bit about UK officials talking about, well, we can't because we have to do this meeting and this meeting and this legislation. We can only do so much at a time. It's like the civilians or the people, the population in the UK are just pointing at Donald Trump and saying, look at him. He's doing it within 1 year. He's absolutely shut down the border. And now he's
something at least.
And now he's starting to work on the immigration through ICE, but mainly through his remigration program at the airport, where he's giving $2,500 and a plane ticket back to your original country or any country that would take you, like Canada.
Canada can go sink itself. But from Semi Nathaniel, kind of in the same vein, quote, Eric Doherty says, Trump was right about everything. The left does not want to see this.
There's that saying, Trump was right about everything, and that's kind of how I'm feeling right now.
It's breakfast conversation, our 6th visit with Betsy Sarcone, dating back to August 2023. Her shift, beyond dramatic. A DeSantis, then a Haley voter, said she would vote for Joe Biden if Trump won the Republican nomination. But she changed her mind.
I think Biden probably changed me more than Trump. I think watching nothing be done for 4 years about an open border.
Now she gives Trump an A-, loves the immigration crackdown, just closed a big real estate sale, and thinks the economy is picking up. Sarkon laughed at Trump's 2020 election fraud claims when we first met. Another big change.
I'm starting to question the election of 2020, right?
He lost the election in 2020.
I don't know.
He lost the
Pause
election
for
in
a quick
2020.
second. How much time left? Okay, that's pretty good. It's CNN because they will ding us. But Trump, not just this Iran situation, but this Iran situation makes the leadership of the Democratic Party go one way, while the base goes another way. And this is constantly happening with a lot of different situations Trump is kind of bringing to the surface. So is he going to be able to peel off voters? I don't know. But
Maybe comments or just keep going?
yeah, if we have any comments. Well, I thought we only had a few viewers right now.
We do, but they still comment, so thank you. Steve Zerfaro says, to tell you are loved, or is simply a conflict of longer duration, right? And then Steve Zerfaro says the term long-term war is redundant. But again, they're calling the 12 days in Iran the 12-day war last year. So
yeah,
that's why I think it's confusing a lot of people, just the word itself.
The issue was, the plan was get the leadership and there'll be an uprising in the country. That second part, if anybody knew Iran, just knew that wasn't going to happen straight up. And now the only way to get a real...
Well, the thing is, they saw the uprising that did happen and got decimated by the regime. And they thought, well, maybe we can get them to uprise even
They
more.
were basically begging them to do it, and they weren't going to do it.
No, but I mean the ones in January.
Yeah.
That's what they were going based off of.
And now they're saying, well, if he goes in, strikes, and then leaves, what did they really accomplish? China's just going to continue to get the oil as soon as the conflicts kind of simmer down there. So you haven't really done much. So I understand the point of, we want to kind of hurt China through the oil, but it's going to be hard.
And the shipping lanes. Don't forget those.
They're not going to be able to secure
The
those
shipping lane
lanes.
strategy. We'll see.
Yeah.
Tal says, I suppose, but there is more to it than that. And then also says, length is somewhat of a red herring, I guess, and then finishes off.
Yeah, but the reason I did bring up length is because it's not just Nat that's saying this isn't a war. There's quite a few people that
I'm
are
saying
taking
the term
that
is being
position.
confusing a lot of people.
Yeah, a lot of people do take your position, but I often see that what defines a war for them then. It's a little bit ridiculous.
We'll see.
But
for me, it's we'll see. Like that's what defines it for me. The right now it's been a few days. We'll see what happens in the next few days, and if it escalates, if it goes down, if he goes in and out.
I don't think it's a good strategy overall.
Okay. Tal says, like it or not, Arabic Muslim countries in general require a form of strongman leadership.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And then also says Indonesia is probably the best example of a Muslim democracy. And I will continue to say we're seeing it in the West right now. Multiculturalism, as Rupert Lowe said, is not compatible.
Yeah,
and there's just incompatibility, irreconcilable differences that people should just accept.
Indonesia is a special case of Islam. It's the one place where it has actually worked and has been successful. But outside of there, they definitely do need strongman leaders. And the issue you're going to have in Iran is the most moderate strongman leader that can hold that country together. You kind of just got rid of. So I think this is kind of playing into the neocons too. They knew if they got rid of that leader, even if Trump went in and out, they would get a more radical leader that would probably activate cells within the United States.
We'll see. That leader hasn't been confirmed yet. That was just
but if it's
preliminary.
It's any leader they get's going to be more radical. Number one, the people within Iran right now are demanding retribution towards the U.S. because as much as even if they didn't like the leadership within the country, they hate the U.S. more over there because they've been fed that for so long. But even like any leader you replace was going to go for retribution. But the fact that it's potentially this guy's son, I can only imagine he's almost required by Islamic law to go after him now. We know what comes next.
Tal says, Guy, I'm betting that we follow scores of the same political commentary channels, many that you feature I know well. Probably, but again, it has become kind of a microcosm too.
What?
Of like political commentary channels and sources that also use each other.
Yeah.
So, and again, you also do watch a lot of insane lefty people.
I watch left, I watch right, I watch black nationalist, I watch Jewish Zionist. I mean, I watch even white supremacists. communist from Canada, Quebec. They have a channel, the Communist
Yeah, they're
Party,
crazy.
like that. But they make really good intellectual points on certain things. And I'm like, even the most crazy people once in a while have the best freaking talking point that nobody else uses because they're unwilling to listen to them. But knowing all these different sides, it really does give me a little bit of insight, especially when you're dealing with the situation of Iran, Israel, and the United States, because the leadership in Israel right now is very radical and very, very war hungry, and the leadership within Iran, they're going to be fairly radical as well. So the fact that I do watch a lot of radicals and moderates helps me kind of understand their thinking.
And also know thy enemy. And you can't have very strong points if you don't know the points of those that you're going up against or that you're commenting up against. So it is important. And when people say, oh, I can't believe you watch this or that, or I can't believe you listen to X, Y person, I do always say, well, it's always better to know more and know what they're talking about too. Otherwise, you end up sounding insane.
Yeah, and what
and sounding like them.
And knowing what their ultimate goals are, because you'll be able to see coalitions before they actually form. Because right now you're seeing the extreme far right kind of coalesce in horseshoe theory with a lot of the far left on certain topics. If they can come to a compromised alliance, you could see a third party arise. In the U.S., I'm talking.
Yeah. And that's kind of what got me to move away, because I had so much insider knowledge of when I was super woke. I kind of knew what their end goals were, and that's what made me say those people are insane and not right at all. Tal also says, gonna make like a banana seeing a tub of ice cream. So thanks again for the stream, you two. Thank you for being here, Tal, and thank you for commenting. And also thank you for, you probably already left, but thank you for sharing the live streams to X as well.
Yeah. Thank you.
I meant to say that last time as well.
Okay, what section are we on now?
Personality politics.
Same one? Okay.
Yeah. Marian Offel says, Whoopi froze on air as co-host Elizabeth Hasselbeck showed before and after photos of Iranian woman. Again, I think these talking points are not the strongest ones coming from the conservatives.
Hold on, but I will.
But it does make crazy liberals shut up.
Whoopi didn't freeze as much as they're trying to make it out to be. They just kind of frame it really quick. But the talking point she's using does work against liberal women extremely well. And liberal women are kind of the base of the Democratic Party right now.
Secretary of War Pete Hegseth has said that this is now the time for the Iranian people to stand and do what they need to do. And when when you look at what women looked like and were treated like, we have a before and after, before this regime and after. This is before, and here's after. And right now, these women have hope. 47 million women have hope. Women, people who are gay are not being thrown off buildings. Women will not be mutilated and murdered. And I think there's such hope, and it takes strength to find peace, and America should be first at that always.
Well, here's the thing, though. I remember, and I hope you're right. I hope for the sake of the Iranian people and for the sake of the world, for America's sake, I hope you're right.
Secretary of War Pete Hegseth has
And
said
then you see, they don't really have any talking points against it because it's an emotional plea to what a woman would relate to. But
I'm going to say, I don't like that talking point because it's weak, but because that's also the excuse that globalism has used, that they need to go democratize other places and then bring the people in because they've been democratized and they've been, in the way that they see it, at least that's how I see it, they've been civilized. So now they can come in and they can do this multiculturalism in this building. But that is why we've had that's the basis of globalism. And that's why I don't agree with those kinds of talking points of, oh, we have to go rescue, we have to go help, we have to go save. No, let them be, just don't let them come this way.
Well, also,
and let them do whatever they want to do over there. It's not the job of the West to continue to try to civilize every other part.
If Trump can just get in and out within these 4 weeks, they're not going to be able to claim refugee status as well. I just want to say that right now, because if this does turn into a forever war, which Nat has made very clear hasn't happened yet, but they will be able to. There's 90 million people in that country, and a lot of them are radicalized. They're automatically going to be approved for remigration status within the UK, with immigration status within the UK, the EU, and possibly even the US.
And again, how did we get into this situation in the first place?
International law.
Because of the insanity of globalism and multiculturalism. And, we're going to go civilized over there. It didn't work out. So now we have to accept them all these radical people as refugees. It's the same playbook. And that's why I don't agree with those talking points of, look at the poor women, look at this, we have to go help democracy, etc. No, don't stop trying to spread democracy where it just won't work. And you'll just end up with more issues on your own soil.
And 90% of the stuff we might not get to, because don't you have to be somewhere at a certain time?
Yes.
What time is that?
I mean, soonish. We've gone for usually our usual time. Do you want to go to RUMBLE so we can talk to Ethel?
Yeah, let's go to RUMB so we can talk to Ethel, and then we'll just pick some of the best articles that we have that we're probably not going to get to. Like literally 90% of the articles we never got to today.
Yeah, because we were debating.
And I spent hours getting these articles, so it upsets me.
Well, we can do them.
No, we can't because they'll be old by then. I'll need
Tomorrow?
new ones. I'll need new ones. No, tomorrow's Alberta Independence.
Okay, fine. Sorry about that.
Yeah, and we'll be back tomorrow. And it's all about Alberta independence tomorrow. There is a ton of more news. I'm the one that gathers the articles.
And there's some crazy things that happened today.
Yeah, I got 60% of the articles so far, and I'll gather the rest in the morning. But there was more than enough. And because now we're talking about Alberta independence Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And surprisingly, there's more than enough information every time.
Mm-hmm. So we'll see you on RUMBLE in a few seconds, and probably will get a little bit spicy, at least for a short time, with Ethel's comments. So we'll see you over there. If not, we'll see you here tomorrow again.
Okay, and I'll log